Hello Internet, I'm Firebolt.
And I'm the Orbiter.
And welcome to the Bollocks Report, episode 6. Today we have a very special guest. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi there, my name's Ben, and I was just randomly asked to come on here because of these guys hearing me on a different podcast talking about movies. So I thought I'd come on and say hi.
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 What date is it?
It is the 16th.
Right. There'll be a video version of this going up on Thursday, which is the 21st. But as soon as I've edited it, which shouldn't be much longer, the podcast will go out in the next day or two.
We normally record these on a Sunday, but tomorrow I've got a concert to play in, so I'm
Fantastic.
not actually able to do it tomorrow.
Which I'm going to do some recording from for my Musician's Diary podcast.
Oh, great. Even more pressure. It's not like it's being...
Cross-promotion.
It's a competition as well.
Better Call Paul, now out on other things. Look it up. I can't remember what it's out on. Right, shall we do it? The thing?
Yeah.
What's the thing?
News rundown.
Well, we normally have a gap in between segments, don't we?
There's the gap then.
Okay, right. So, news rundown. It's a lot shorter this week because I'm
Yeah, that's not going to happen though.
a massive...
There are fewer items on it, but I can pretty much guarantee we're going to talk for longer on them.
Yeah, a lot of them are from like the last few days. I couldn't really get anything else because news websites don't seem to really give you anything beyond a week old.
Because then there'd be
No, they
olds.
don't.
No.
There'd be olds and not news.
And the BBC, I think, once did a weekly rundown thing, and then that I could only find an article from 2016 on that.
Yeah, but the BBC is shit, though.
Oh, there was another item that we had suggested to put in, which we can look up later on, maybe before we start the segment. On this day in history.
Okay.
I might leave that in, but we can maybe do that at the end, yeah.
Okay, so let's just get started with the news rundown. And can you not fart?
Well,
Fucking asshole.
it's pretty par for the course with me, so carry on. He's all right. He can't smell it.
Great. Okay, so
First piece.
funerals begin for New Zealand shooting victims, and the suspect goes to court. Have you heard about this?
Who hasn't?
Have you heard about this?
I have.
You normally just don't hear about stuff outside of the UK.
Bollocks. I thought it was interesting that one of the national newspapers published the shooter's entire manifesto
I'm
for
glad
people
that-
to read.
Yeah.
This is one of those times I think you need to read it.
Oh, right, okay.
I think everybody should read it because it is absolutely,
Have you
in my
read it?
opinion, I have.
Maybe
well,
I should read it then.
I've glanced at it anyway, but this is one of those times where you can really get into the mind of someone and into their motivation.
Right,
And he really does say why he's doing it.
right, okay.
So I think everybody should read it because with these things, sometimes you don't know their motivations. But this
Right.
guy has got it on a 17-page manifesto right there. Read it.
What's happened to him in the end? He's a suspect goes
He's
to
going
court. Is he just a suspect? Because
Well,
He live streamed it.
yeah, that's
yeah, he live streamed it and, interestingly enough, name dropped PewDiePie, the biggest YouTuber, I think.
right.
Yes, he did that. He did that on purpose. It's nothing to do with PewDiePie. Like I say, this is why people need to read his manifesto, because he specifically said he's going to do things like this and name drop people like this to sow division between people, so that people will go on Twitter and argue with one another,
Yeah.
and blame each other, and inflame tensions.
He's
Because
not working for the
that's-
Russians, is he, by any chance?
No, he's just a psychopath.
But
I feel
but then-
underprepared. We should read that later on.
But then at the same time, you know, these people, the concerns he sort of lists out. One of the major concerns that he's got is this is revenge for all the Islamic terror. That is a valid point and a discussion nobody's having. But at the same time, that is not justification for going out and killing innocent people.
Yeah.
It's just not.
yeah, because those
But
Muslims
there is
didn't take part in that.
No, of course they didn't. But there is a discussion to be had there, one we are not having, quite frankly, as a society at all.
Yeah.
But still, this is not the way.
Yes, I quite agree.
But I feel like we just sort of, as a society, also just let right-wing terrorism fester and just written it off as people being hooligans, but it's killed multiple people. Like Joe Cox, before Brexit was murdered, that was right-wing terrorism. Yes. And now more of the terrorism in the UK is right-wing terrorism than far-right Islamic terrorism.
I would say the deadly terrorism, yes, but I would also say that because I'm against identitarianism of any kind, and that means far right, far left. They're just as bad as one another. They're two sides of the same coin. They're all white supremacists. Far left wings, they just frame the way they see the races in a different way. They're all white supremacists. They're all violent, and they're all wrong.
I wouldn't necessarily say can a Muslim terrorist be a white supremacist?
Well, I said far right and far left, but a Muslim terrorist is still an identitarian.
Right. Okay. You mean with the far right and the far left as a motivation rather than?
Oh yeah. I mean, with the far right, when they do something, it's deadly. With the far left, when they do something, they go out and they're going to LARP anarchy. You know, they dress up in their little black. They go dress up in their little black masks, think they're cool, gang up on a woman and beat her up.
Right.
I think that's Antifa that you're talking about.
Yes, the LARPers.
And I don't think they're specifically any particular ideology apart from against fascism. And
No, absolutely not, because what they do is akin to fascism.
Yeah, I would agree, but
they're actually the New Jersey Department of Homeland Security in the United States have labelled them a domestic terror organisation because that is what they are.
Yeah, from what I've seen. But I've also heard that it's not actually specifically an organisation, it's just a sort of an identity label as broad as far left because it's just against fascism in some way.
But see, the thing is, they're communists, basically. And so, fascism, communism, two sides of the same coin, two absolutely murderous ideologies, killed tens, hundreds of millions of people, and we shouldn't have to put up with any of them.
Is pure communism as extreme?
I feel like corruptions of communism.
I couldn't give you, and you couldn't give me a single example of communism that's ever worked, or socialism, because it doesn't exist.
The Incan Empire. For 400 years before the Spanish arrived, they had a working form of socialism that was akin to what would now be called communism, I think.
Well, you can guess that happened, but do you have evidence of this?
Look it up. There's also certain communities in Spain that practice anarcho-socialism very peacefully, I think.
Well, it's not so much, the old trope goes, everybody is equal under socialism. They're equally poor.
Just
what are we on here? A socialist empire, the Incas of Peru.
But is this at the end of the day, this is somebody's writings. This is not evidence.
Well, without a time machine, you can't analyze any period in history accurately, can you?
But I'm talking about let's bring it back to modern day. Last 100 years, 100 years. Could not give me an example of any form of this ideology that works.
Well, the communities I mentioned in Spain do exist right now.
What are they? There was something else. Christiania. You heard of that?
No.
Look it up. I think it's just outside Amsterdam somewhere. But it's essentially a lawless state that doesn't have any well, it's not a state. It's not actually,
Freetown, Christiania. An intentional community and commune of about 850 to 1,000 residents covering 7.7 hectares in the borough of Christian Haven in the Danish capital city of Copenhagen.
Copenhagen, sorry. I got that slightly wrong.
All right, it's fine.
But I don't think they're particularly well off. But
no, of course they're not. They're not prosperous in any way, shape or form, are they? They're a commune.
But there's the trouble is it's kind of keeping the balance, isn't it? Like you say, it's the extremes, the far right and the far left, that
they're just two sides of the same coin.
But how do you maintain the balance when there are forces that are trying to divide all the time?
Have you seen the libertarian and left-right axis?
You mean the political compass?
Yeah.
Yes, I sit just to the left, well into the libertarian spectrum on that compass.
Yeah,
that's probably about the same as me. Then I would think you're probably a bit further left than me, aren't you?
Yeah, I would say so.
But
I would say it's just generally the ideologies above the authoritarian line that I take issue with.
Well, yeah, anything about that line and anything to do with identitarianism of any kind. So it's just a way to divide people. It's just a way to segregate people, and it's going to make things worse if we keep letting these ideologies fester. And it's not just the far right. It's festering everywhere.
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by identitarianism. Can you explain that a bit clearer, or?
So what I mean by is sort of intersectionality, intersectional feminism, all of that. Where you just focus on an identity. So like the Black Lives Matter group. Okay?
Yeah.
They're identitarians.
Right.
White supremacists, identitarians.
So it's not the same as identifying with a particular political party.
No. Where you actually take a group.
Yeah.
You take a group of people, and then your group is that, and then everything else is the other.
Yeah.
But do you not think it's important, given the inequalities in our society, to have a way to seek justice?
Not through identity, no.
Right.
I don't think that... I'm a firm believer of everybody is equal. We now live in a society where everybody does get equal opportunity, in Britain anyway.
Yeah, there's no reason a particular identity should have more legal protection than any other.
No. Not at all. Especially like we see right now with people cracking down on speech laws. I think that is terrifying.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't. I'm a disabled man, and I fall into one of these protected groups, and I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, well, Theo's
autistic
as well, so he's got issues that are maybe not entirely obvious on the surface, but. Tell us more about the issues that you face, because that might give us a bit of insight into
disability-wise.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of in constant pain. My joint seize up, my muscle seize up. I can have seizures and shakes.
But
it's a form of MS.
Yeah.
My joints dislocate.
How does society treat that for you?
How I let them.
Right.
I'm a firm believer of I want to be treated like everybody else, and if somebody does try and treat me differently, I won't allow it.
Right.
Because I am just like everybody else, and I feel like we should all. I don't believe in the concept of equity. Do you hear the difference? Do you know the difference between equity and equality?
Yeah,
I've heard.
So I don't believe in the concept of equity at all. I believe in the concept of equality. One man, one chance, one opportunity, equal opportunities. By man, I mean human being, obviously. But I think everybody should have equal opportunity, no matter their race, no matter their sex, no matter their circumstances. And I don't believe in equal outcomes either.
No,
I think you get out of life what you put in, and I don't.
Okay, but would you say that Donald Trump's gotten out of life what he's put in?
I think Donald Trump's a fucking idiot.
See,
but he's a rich fucking idiot that's the president of the United States.
But what you were just saying kind of feeds into the, I think the it's almost an insoluble paradox, because you can't you've got that concept of people, certain people being born into a privileged situation.
Yeah.
But if you also don't believe in equality of outcome, that if that's kind of born of merit, how do you bring a child into the world in an equally privileged? Do you know what I mean? Like, one family is going to have achieved more than another family, so their child that's born into that family is going to be more privileged, if you like, in some ways. So how do you level the playing field, like in that sense?
Well, see, I don't know, and I'm not going to claim to have all the answers.
Yeah.
I just know where I think we should be in life, and I think we should all. I think we should all start in the same place.
It's something to strive for, isn't it? That it's not necessarily fully attainable, but we should at least.
I tell you what the answer isn't, and it's taking people like what's it called? Sorry, my mind's going blank. Where they give people the job based purely on their race or gender. I don't think that's the answer.
Yeah.
I think that's exclusionary, not inclusionary.
Yeah.
But I think studies have found that more often than not, the bosses, even if they're not noticing it, have discriminations anyway, so they're more likely to pick a white man.
They absolutely blew that concept apart in Australia, actually. They did a study where they did it all blind, with no race, no gender, and they still picked the same.
Yeah. You can't have an unpolluted kind of sample, though, can you? Because everybody who's coming into the job market is coming from the unbalanced society we live in, so they've got their own kind of self-esteem sort of values, if you like.
I mean, I am not in the most privileged position in life, and I never will be.
Yeah.
But I when I was 18 years old, I was living on the streets.
Oh, right. Okay.
And you know, I dragged myself up. I've got 2 degrees. I did that myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want or need any leg up. I took the motivation and I did it myself.
Yeah. Mm.
But does it not make you pissed off that some people just get to a higher status than you without having to pull their weight at all?
Well, I'm not really a jealous person. So I just accept that sometimes that's the way life is, because like Paul said, some people are born into money, and they can't help that.
Mm.
If their parents have worked hard for that money,
it's what you do with that situation yourself, isn't it? It's how you.
I mean, we could bring that right back round to Donald Trump. He was born into money.
Yeah.
But how do we stop? How do we allow our society to be based on merit?
Well, once again, I don't have the answer as to how. I just know we need to get there.
Mm.
Right.
I'm not the type of person that claims to have all the answers. I just know where I feel we need to be.
It's certainly damned obvious how badly some things are heading in the wrong direction. Even if you don't know how to point it in the right direction, we could be a lot nearer the target than we are.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we don't have these conversations anymore. We just nowadays, you go for a Twitter feed. All people do is they put themselves off into bubbles, into echo chambers, and then they just make everybody else, like I said, with identitarianism, they just make everybody else the other.
Yeah.
And instead of engaging in an opposing view, they attack.
Well, I've been watching a series, Homeland, on Netflix, and there's the thing about the sort of data information kind of manipulation. And there's a concept in there where they're looking at the spread of memes on social networks, and there's all these nodes that are like automated bots that are basically there to fire off particular ideas. And and then they get spread across by real humans in particular patterns, and the whole idea behind it is, I think, pretty much what happened with the pre-Brexit campaigns, that it's really just to polarize people and weaken society. So,
and this literally turns back into what this originally was about, the New Zealand shooter. It is what he wants.
Yeah.
He says it in his manifesto himself. And the thing is, everybody right now on Twitter are giving him what
to achieve what, though? I mean, you kind of, even if you don't agree with it, you can kind of see the reasoning behind somebody like Putin investing in that kind of...
So what he says he wants is that he's a white supremacist. He wants the furthering of the white race, and he wants the other, the Islamic religion, out of Europe.
Yeah.
He said he wants to spark a civil war in the United States.
And he wants to do it from New Zealand.
Well, he said that he chose his target and his weapons carefully because it would make the Congress go after semi-automatic weapons again in the United States.
Yeah.
Because it would be that big a thing. And then it would, this is what he says in his manifesto, it would make the Second Amendment nuts think they're coming for our guns, and violently react.
Anyway, should we move on to another article?
Facebook and Instagram have partial outage causing huge economic damage.
I did notice something about Facebook having to put out announcements via Twitter to some people, which I thought was quite amusing. Did they actually say what that was down to in the end? Because the last thing I saw on the news, they weren't explaining what the outage had been caused by.
Yeah, I looked through some of the news stories. I thought because it was all of Facebook's properties, WhatsApp was also part of this.
Yeah.
That, because I'd seen a news story earlier in the year saying that they were going to allow users of each platform communicate with each other, even if they aren't on the same platform.
Well, there was comment as well about this is one of the reasons why this consolidation of different platforms is so dangerous, because if it's capable of breaking down communication within the wider business community and causing economic damage, then it's potentially
small businesses
a lot more than just a
a
website going down. It's
yeah, because Facebook, I think, has something like 2 billion users. It's ridiculous. Although I'd imagine a fair portion of that is bots.
Yeah.
I'm just reading here that Facebook are blaming a server configuration for the outage. Say it wasn't a cyber attack.
A server configuration.
So basically just a technical blip, but because we're so reliant...
They were changing over servers, and it all went wrong.
Yeah.
But from what I can see here.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm with the TSB, and it's still not completely right, the internet banking thing. That's been going on for a fucking year. You'd have thought that... I mean, they've actually brought in IBM to try and sort that situation out, because they were changing... TSB were changing ownership, weren't they, to... Is it Sabadell Group?
I have no idea.
And because of that, they were changing over their IT systems, and it all went to pot. And they've had to pay out a fair amount of compensation. But you think if organisations that big and that reliant on technology are making mistakes and things that have that much of an effect, then it's a bit worrying. It seems like the people who should know how to fix it all aren't enough of them, or they're maybe just nobody knows the whole system well enough to fix something completely. You've got all these specialists in different areas. It's a bit like my wife's got a chronic pain condition, which has related issues with neuralgia, and it's called TMJD. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've not, no.
It's basically a jaw sort of nerve pain condition thing that spreads like into the shoulder and around the head and stuff.
Fantastic.
But there's these experts that have knowledge in a particular field. But they don't talk to people that have expertise in a related field. So you've got the people that will be experts on joint pain, but then you'll have the neurologists that know their area. And actually, the one person that seems to have the best sort of advice for her has been a sports massage therapist, because they know a lot about how all these systems interlink with each other and how they affect each other. And it's a similar thing I think with IT. You might have a server specialist who doesn't know enough about the rest of what's going on. There might, everything seems to be built in modules, sort of built on the shoulders of giants kind of concept.
I feel like the more interesting thing to come out of this story is how the world kind of freaked out just because it was down for...
This is where I was about to go. That is concerning to me.
Yeah.
That is concerning to me that people rely so heavily on these social media platforms these days. I mean, I use them to market my brand because I like to do disabled travel.
Yeah.
Especially Disney. I'm actually a disabled ambassador for Disneyland Paris.
Right.
But that's basically all I use it for. I mean, I still have real world conversations quite often. I mean, we're basically having one now. I mean, I know we're using the internet to talk, but we're actually talking.
Yeah.
Whereas so many people just don't anymore. They just use this crap, and it is crap.
Yeah.
And it's I think that we could tangent it back to what we were just talking about, and these are helping divide society.
Yeah. Because you're getting sound bites of hate, if you like.
Yeah, because it's so easy to take something out of context there.
Absolutely.
When there's no tone given by the text form. And if they clarify it afterwards, that's not going to go in a news story.
Exactly. And when the news tweets out something and it's completely wrong, and the tweet goes viral, then 2-3 hours later they'll tweet the clarification, and that will just be ignored.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was you brought up, I can't remember what it was we were talking about, but that woman last year, was it, or the year before, that got on the plane, made that flippant comment, flippant tweet, got on the plane in America.
I don't believe that podcast will have gone out yet.
Ah, okay. Well, maybe leave that one then, will we?
Maybe.
Well, we can mention it, can't we?
Sure.
Yeah. Was it last year or the year before? She got on the plane in America. She was on her way to South Africa, and she said something daft.
She said,
unwise.
Going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white.
Yes. I do remember this.
And then she gets off the plane at the other side, and basically her life's in ruins.
Yeah. If you search up her name, I can't remember what it is. There's all the news stories for the first 10 pages or so are of that.
It's
and just got a one tweet. And she later clarified that it was a comment on how little Americans actually care about the AIDS crisis in Africa.
See, the other thing is, I've had this conversation actually with your sister earlier today. She's very reluctant to take part in any of the kind of YouTube or podcasting stuff that we do.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, I kind of see her reasons for that, because she's in sort of training with theatre studies, so there's every chance that if she does any good at what she's doing, she's going to be looking for jobs in sort of TV or theatre. She could get some measure of fame, if you like.
She could get James Gunn.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So if she says one thing or tweets one thing that could be taken out of context, or it's not offensive
10 years
now,
down the line.
Basically just seems poor jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jokes that were badly written, but taken to mean something. Like, if Jimmy Carr did a joke like that, I think like he would do it well enough that...
But that's his identity, isn't it? It's kind of, that's what he...
Yeah. See, at the same time, I really don't think when it comes to comedy there's a line. I think, everybody has their own niche and their own subjective, what they like to hear. And I don't think that anything should ever be off limits in comedy, because the second you make one thing off limits, everyone else asks.
Yeah, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're censoring left, right, and centre. But the thing is, we've now, once again, thanks to social media, we've got these groups that just rove around looking at people's histories to try and find outrage, to try and unperson them from the world.
The offence brigade.
Yes. My God.
I feel like
they are just...
Well, maybe a complete outage of the social networks wouldn't be such a bad thing then.
I think there's some people that would say that the reason people don't like those jokes is because they're offensive, which I would say they're wrong. I would say because they're badly written. But
even so, if they're offensive, so bloody what?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, so bloody what? What are we going to do?
It's just when it's not clear whether they're being serious, I think.
But I've been in an audience for a comedian and found myself laughing, and you can tell that most of the audience that are laughing with you are half laughing at the fact that they're shocked that they're laughing about it. You know what I mean? It's overstepping that line that is the funny thing, and it is a bit of a shock. Yeah.
You know, you don't. Comedy is mostly taking the piss out of things.
Yeah,
it's basically what it is.
Mm.
And I'm sorry, offence is taken, not given, and I know that's an old trope, but
no, definitely,
it's just true. It's just so subjective, and comedy's so subjective, right? I don't think James Gunn's tweets were funny at all. I think they're actually quite disgusting. Even people say they were taken out of context, but what context do you put some of the things he said in?
Yeah.
You know, well, what is the context there? Because some of the things are basically about raping children.
You've got, if you're tweeting something, you've got to be wise and think about.
Well, exactly. But the thing is, once again, I know that he was a shock comedian. That's what he did to begin with. Shock comedy. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's not intended to be. People, I see people on the other side of things calling him a paedophile. No, he's not a fucking paedophile. Excuse my language, but he's not. He's just an offensive prankster.
Yeah,
and people need to grow up. People need to grow up.
It's the difference between, because I mean, you probably hear the same kind of humour down the pub every Friday and Saturday night all over the country, but they're not putting it. If you don't put it in print and online, it's just, you know, it's gone. Whereas once it's online, that's it. You can be pinned down on it.
Okay.
Exactly, and it's just insane. We're living, thanks to social media, we're living in insane times, and I completely agree with you. I think a complete outage of the entire social media network would not be a bad thing, because then people would be forced to talk again.
Yeah. Anyway, this next section I think is going to take.
Yeah, this is probably going to be the longest discussion. I don't know.
Okay.
MPs vote to delay Brexit. That I was shouting at the TV when I saw the chaos this week.
Can I interrupt before we even start discussing this, just to see where we're all coming from? Did you vote in the referendum?
I did.
Are you prepared to? Are you happy to tell us how you voted?
I voted Remain, but if we're forced to do it again, I'll vote Leave.
That's interesting. I actually, for the first time yesterday, heard somebody who voted Leave say that they regretted their vote. I've heard lots of people say the other way round. That I've heard lots of Remainers claim that Leavers would change their mind, but I've never actually heard a Leaver say they would change their mind. And this is the first time I've heard a Remainer say that they would change their mind.
I absolutely would.
Right.
But not for the reasons that people might think. I basically I believe that we need to respect the democratic will of the people in the largest democratic vote ever taken in this country. And I think if we were to then undermine it with another vote, because I can see the way the other vote's going to go, is what they're going to do is they're going to split the Leave vote. So they're going to give you 2 Leave options and 1 Remain.
Can I just ask you though, would you be happy to be living in a society that was constructed based on the results of a vote which was held after a criminal campaign?
Well, I don't know if you could really call it a criminal campaign. That's still being contested in the courts.
Is it?
Yeah, they're definitely appealing.
They're appealing.
I know they're definitely.
Right, okay. Yeah, but as things stand, it's been judged. I mean, how long can they string that out for? The appeal.
But I don't know. But at the end of the day, you know, it was 52-48, and it was close. but I am also a big believer in democracy, and the way I look at it is we haven't left. And when we vote in a general election, we don't just decide we don't like the outcome of the general election and vote again before the new government's given a chance to take power.
No, but then we're not going to have another referendum in less than 5 years, are we?
Well, we could be having one next year.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting though that the whole sort of claim of it being a criminal campaign was based on the there was a whole lot of stuff going on with that information technology that we were talking about social media exploitation and division of the masses, if you like.
Leave the very likely one EU referendum due to illegal overspending, says Oxford professor's evidence to
Yes, but the overspend, from what I understand, it is, in the grand scheme of things, a minuscule overspend, and the government on the Remain side, on our side, actually spent a lot more anyway.
It has a more in detail thing below it saying analysis finds advert reach tens of millions of people in crucial days.
Well, the other thing was I'd also,
enough to change the outcome.
I'd also heard that the same process analysing the Remain campaign had declared that their campaign was legal this week.
Yeah.
So I feel like you probably heard a lot of people saying just the lies alone, but I say with illegality and just what we've shown, just how much damage it's caused.
There's a lot of
in the last 2 years.
What damage has it actually caused? Right, because at the end of the day, they promised things to us if we voted leave, like a punishment budget, like an immediate recession after the vote. None of this came to pass.
Well,
so what damage has
the pound did
caused?
Drop to, I think...
we did not go into recession. And the thing is, my
I did. I'm a lot worse off because of it.
My degrees are in business and finance, and I have a little bit of insight into where I think we should go.
If the pound dropping wasn't due to Brexit, then it's not Brexit's fault. But I have lost in the order of thousands of pounds on holidays over the last couple of years because of the change in the exchange rates.
Oh yeah, of course. And I mean, right now the exchange rates are pretty good, especially with the euro.
Nothing like what it used to be, though.
Absolutely not. But then again, this time last year, I was getting 10, 12p less a pound. And I know
as a freelancer that the business I'm in has just completely died out. Not completely, but we're getting about half the business that we were a couple of years ago, and it's not.
But
it's not improving.
Due to the vote, or is it due to the absolute shit show of uncertainty we've got?
Well, I feel like the problem with the vote was that the Leave campaign didn't really have any plans of what they were going to do, reasonable plans at least.
They didn't expect to win.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get to vote anyway, but I don't feel like just ploughing on into something that the vast majority of experts say will really hurt our economy.
It's an interesting...
I am an economic expert, and I can tell you right now that if we went... This is just my analysis of things. If we went off the cliff edge and went to the World Trade Organization, initiated Article 24, I believe it is, and which allows us to trade under the same terms right now that we have for 10 years until we can strike out a new trade deal, I believe that we would be fine. We might see we might see another crash in the pound, but it would be very, 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 very quick, and it would be over quickly. Because once they instigate that article, I believe it's Article 24 with the World Trade Organization, we can just continue to trade under the terms we've been trading for now.
If trade was all it was about,
think about
that might be
the worries of medicine shortages, particularly with your MS?
I think it's an absolute scare story, because even the EU have told us that there will be in the event of a no deal, there will be no extra checks and no delays at the borders. They've told us that.
when.
Well, I don't see the point then. What's the point of having a border if that's the case? It's like that's my argument for staying. It's like, well, if you're not going to actually implement any kind of border control, what is the point? What is it for?
Once again, I voted Remain, but the thing is, I'm so torn because I can look at the EU from a financial perspective, and I can see that it's a dying organisation, and the euro is a death of a currency that's going to have to go away, I would say, within the next 10 years, or it's just going to bring the entire continent down.
Interesting. I find it interesting, actually, you saying that you voted Remain, but next time you would vote Leave, because I'm actually in the same position with the Scottish independence referendum. I voted Remain, and would, if they held another one now, would vote Leave now.
I can understand that perspective. Absolutely.
Not because of Europe, but just because I'm actually ashamed to be British at the moment.
Within a few months, I think I would be allowed to vote in that, and I don't know how I would vote in that, I don't think, because...
The thing is, I'm English through and through, and I'm ashamed to be British.
Yeah, well, I am. Oh.
Maybe not for the same reasons, but I think that this... Britain right now is just an awful place. I think we're doing awful things to people. We're criminalising people for speech. We're absolutely just an awful place, and I'm ashamed of my country.
Yeah.
And I'm ashamed of our politicians. I'm ashamed of everything.
My kids were born in Scotland, but I'm English, technically. So.
Well, my father lives in my family on my mother's side, McEwen clan. Full on Scottish through and through. But my father's actually with a Scottish woman and has decided to basically run off and live in Scotland. So they live in Glasgow. So I have a lot of affinity and connection with Scotland myself.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I couldn't blame you for wanting to break away from Britain at all. I couldn't blame you. I would want to do the same.
Anyway.
I feel like that would be only really on the condition of being allowed back into the EU, but we already know that Spain's probably not going to want that, because then that shows that they support independence.
Hey, maybe they would allow Catalonia. Maybe they would allow it as a trade for getting Gibraltar. We give them Gibraltar.
I don't think Scotland can choose to give Spain Gibraltar.
We'll be part of the UK. We would have an equal say, wouldn't we?
No, we don't.
Well, we would at the point where the negotiations took place. We should have. We don't, but we should have.
Like I say, if you go down that route, you'd have to have the euro.
I wouldn't care. I'd be happy with that, but then I'm not a financial expert, so I've never had any problem with getting rid of the pound. It's just a word for a.
The euro is just such a spread thin currency, and there are too many economies within the United States of Europe, as it now seems to be, that are failing. So there's only 5 or 6 net contributors to the EU, and we're one of them. And so when we pull out our money, we're a net contributor. Where's that extra £10 billion a year that we net contribute going to come from? Because it's not going to come from Greece.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting few months, isn't it?
It's going to be scary. Because I feel like the worst thing is just that nobody really knows what's going to happen now. I think they've decided to delay it until June or something.
I don't know.
Well, they have...
Sorry.
Approved.
Yeah.
They have to. The EU still have to approve it, and if just one of the member states say no, there's no extension happening.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've seen the commentators theorising that even though France and Spain say that they would oppose it, that they're likely to say yes because they're going to lose so much out of it as well. But I did see a report. I don't know if it was just the tabloids stirring up shit again, that the EU were going to come back and demand that we have a 2-year extension so that we've got time to take a second referendum. But I don't know if that was just media bollocks as usual.
But the thing is, once again, the extension, from what I understand, is on their terms.
Yeah, that's it. So they can demand pretty much whatever they want. If if we're going to get an extension.
This is why I think voting to take no deal off the table was the stupidest thing they could have done. Because the thing is, we are a net contributor to the EU. We do have a trade deficit with the EU. We spend more there than they spend here. And having no deal on the table severely strengthened our hand, and we should have threatened to use it in our negotiations. Because they're the ones that would have been hurt financially from it, not us.
I feel like a lot of the analysis, at least that I've seen, has said otherwise. Oh, we've lost connection.
Oh. Is that our end?
No, because we're only like the third item into the news rundown.
There was a problem with the network.
Well, hang out.
Try that then. Oh. Oh, we're still connected to that. There's a server connection interrupted with... Pardon me. Shall I go and check the router? Are we getting connection here?
Yeah.
Because there's at the same time the connection with the router went down as well. With the NAS went down. They keep recording it.
Walking past.
We're getting there we go.
Hello?
I'll cut you off.
Okay, we're back.
Hello?
I don't know why that happened, but...
Our camera's not on, can
I've
you?
switched over to mobile data in case it was my end.
Well, we lost network connection to our local NAS router as well, so I think there was a problem at our end.
Okay, well, I'm on mobile data, but I've got 60 gig anyway. Hold on, where's my camera? Where's my camera? There I am. Right.
Hey,
Get me back.
we're back.
We're back.
There we go.
Shall we move on from Brexit?
Okay, yeah, I feel like we need to get through these a little bit faster than we have been, because we've had like a whole thesis discussions after each one so far.
Sorry about that.
It's fine. But, I mean,
It's better than the usual.
It makes
rush
up
that we
for the fact that we've only got like half a page of news stories now. Okay, NASA engineer looks to Titan for human colony.
Which planet is that a moon of? Is that
Jupiter?
Jupiter.
I think it's Jupiter. Yeah.
Hmm.
Can you hear us?
Hello?
Yeah, sorry, I hope my connection does.
Yeah, it just went. That's not us. That's
Hang on, it's just
we're
reconnected.
yeah, back. Yes.
Yes.
Right, yeah, that was just my network being a dick.
That's fine.
Okay, we might have slightly patchy connections here, but we'll see.
Okay.
Titan, human colony. That's going to take a while to get to. Shouldn't we concentrate on going back to the moon and then Mars first?
I completely agree. What the hell?
That's a long way.
I think
It's a
the thing that the sort of extra explanation was the marketing campaign would be that you could attach wings to yourself and fly.
On Titan?
Yeah.
because of the low gravity.
Yeah, and presumably the atmosphere is thick enough, I guess.
I mean, it sounds like fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, all it says is NASA engineer looks to Titan for human colony. He might have just literally just
tell you what, we take the billionaires first. We take Donald Trump. We take Richard Branson.
And leave them there.
Yeah, and we'll leave them there. We'll say bye-bye.
Okay. Yeah, there's not a lot you can discuss about that one, really, is there?
Yeah, it's just the sort of...
definitely stupid.
I think it would be interesting.
Eventually, maybe, but...
Because Mars is
we haven't
kind
been back
of...
to the moon for fucking...
Mars
decades.
isn't really the best place.
The amount of times we keep saying we're going back to the moon, we build these brand new multi-million-pound moon rovers, and then they just fucking sit stationary.
Mm.
James May fucking drove one on Top Gear, didn't he?
If capitalism continues, we might actually get back there now, though, because the private companies are involved now.
Although, from what I've seen, SpaceX is fairly aware of the scientific goal.
Right.
Oh, I love Elon Musk.
Sometimes,
I love him.
Yeah.
He's sometimes a bit of a twat, but I like him.
He's an absolute twat.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's probably the most human billionaire I've ever seen. He just pisses about and sells fucking flamethrowers.
I mean, it's interesting that you say that because I think he looks quite robotic personally. But yeah,
oh no, he looks robotic, but in his mannerisms, in the way he acts, you could just he's more like you can go for him down the pint, go with him down the pub for a pint, than Nigel Farage tries to be.
Yeah,
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Sorry. You know, he's just a normal bloke who just happened to do very well in his life.
Okay, do you want to go on to the next story?
Go on then. Who the fuck is this?
Australian Aboriginals win right to sue for colonial land loss.
Hang on.
What?
They win the right.
Yeah.
So does that mean they've been to court to get the right to sue?
Yes.
Why could they not just skip that? I mean, like, could they not have just sued in the first place? Why would you have to win a right to sue?
Well, you have to
prove ownership, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, I don't know.
Who are they going to sue?
Well,
white people.
Well, they're going to sue some landowners to sort of try and reclaim territory that was there.
Would it not be the UK?
Yeah, I would imagine it would be the UK.
Because we've just been kicked out, or we've been told by the UN to give back that island, haven't we, as well?
Yeah.
So it's coming back to kick us in the balls.
Well, I think it would be just that they're allowed to have more territory, because I think similar to the US, they have sort of reserves for Aboriginals, which...
There's a lot of land there, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
But I think the idea is the actual land that is useful for something.
Yeah.
They're wanting some of it back because in the past, a lot of Aboriginals were slaughtered in order for basically white people to have that land.
Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely, and that was wrong. And the thing is, like I say, the UK will probably be the people to sue. Sorry if you can hear something in the background. It's pretty cold in here. I've just put my heater on. But the UK probably be the people to sue. But then at the same time, do we personally take any kind of collective responsibility for what happened? I argue we don't.
Not collective responsibility, but I feel... I don't know how I feel about it, because I'm not exactly for people being held responsible for their ancestors' actions, but in the same way, if you're directly benefiting from that, I mean, you're not as bad as them, and you're not anyway responsible for what happened to the other person's ancestors.
That's the other side of the same coin. That the people, the Aboriginals that are suing for colonial land loss weren't born into a life where that land belonged to them. So
exactly,
they're claiming back compensation that was owed to their ancestors rather than owed by ours. Yeah, it was owed by our ancestors to their ancestors.
Yeah, but the reality in Australia is that
the reality in Australia is awful.
Yeah,
it really is. They are treated like second-class citizens, and it's absolutely disgraceful.
So I feel like they're whilst I don't agree with the ancestral responsibility thing, because that's bullshit, because you don't have any control over what your granddad did if he did.
But it's not even that. It's like you see on Twitter these days, you just get blamed for something that people in the past that just looked like you did. Sorry, no, I'm responsible for me, not what someone 500 years ago that might have had the same eye colour and hair colour as me did.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I feel like
responsibility is dangerous.
Yeah. So sometimes it can go too far. Well, often it can go too far.
Jesus, can you imagine if you got the if you had to carry the can for some of the shit I've done?
I hope not.
His face.
It's all in our podcast. Well, not all of it, but
no, it's not. I wasn't recording that.
But like I say, the way they are treated now is appalling.
Yeah,
and they are treated like second-class citizens. And if they can, once again, I'm a firm believer in everybody should be treated equally. Everybody should be given an equal chance. And you can just see from the reality over there that they're not.
Mm.
And
I think the idea is to get some compensation for the way that they have been treated and the amount of land they have.
I don't know a huge amount about the situation over there. Do you know, is it as bad as it was in South Africa during apartheid, or is it a completely different situation?
It's different in the way that
situation.
They're not the majority.
Right. Okay. Yep.
But at the same time, like I say, they live collectively quite often. And their towns are very run down, and they don't get government money. They get very neglected. They're treated like second-class citizens. And quite frankly, if they can win the right to be given an equal footing, go for it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think it's more similar to the situation with Native Americans and the American government. Although I think they're given even less respect than
they're given no respect at all.
Yeah,
from what I've seen, and like I say, it's an awful situation for anyone to be in, and they shouldn't be in it. Especially as, at the end of the day, they are native to that land, and they have a right to at least be treated equally, at least, because everybody should have that right. And they're not getting it. And like I said, if they can win some rights and dignity, some respect, I'm absolutely with that.
Yeah.
Okay, the next news story is, I don't know if you really follow US politics that much.
I do.
Beto O'Rourke joins the running for Democratic candidates in the 2020 election. Yes,
Beto O'Rourke. It's just another populist twat.
Yeah, I feel like they've got just far too many candidates now.
I was just going to say, they're not spreading themselves a bit thin.
They've got Bernie Sanders, they've got, I think, is it Kamala Harris?
Kamala Harris is running.
Kamala Harris.
Tulsi Gabbard is running, who I think is a good candidate from Hawaii.
Not heard of them.
It's got Elizabeth Warren.
Yep.
That's who have declared so far. There may be more, I'm not sure. But right now, as it stands, pretty much all of them except Tulsi Gabbard are campaigning on identity. And if they keep doing that, they're going to lose. Donald Trump will win.
Yeah.
Well, he campaigned very much on identity, but in a different way.
Yeah, he did. He definitely did. But he also, the reason Donald Trump won is because Donald Trump won the Rust Belt. He focused very, very much on economical stability for the Rust Belt, and that got them over to his side. And still, the Democrats appear to have not learned that
basically
lesson.
Just lying, but being okay with being dishonest with people.
Yeah, but then I believe there was an article, I can't remember where it was. It could have been in USA Today, but technically speaking, he's the most honest president in history.
How?
Because he never minces his words.
Because he actually believes the shit that he says.
Yeah. He never minces his words. I mean, Barack Obama was economically devastating for the country, so that there needed to be a change. But Hillary Clinton should have been the easiest campaign in history to win. But once again, she campaigned on identity, and then but on divisive identity. Then she decided to call half the people she could have tried to court for votes deplorables because she's a fucking idiot. And she lost. Because you're trying to court these votes away from that man. You don't call them names.
Yeah, but I feel... I don't know, did Donald Trump... I mean, I know he's called all sorts of reporters just terrible things.
He's not a decent human being at all. He's not a nice man. But at the same time, if they continue campaigning down this road, this intersectionality, as they like to call it these days, he's just going to win because nobody wants it.
Right.
I've got a fear that he'll probably win again, but
I think
I'm going to hope that he gets impeached before then.
Yeah, but impeachment doesn't mean impeachment doesn't mean removal either.
No, Bill Clinton got impeached.
Yeah, but he wasn't removed from office.
Well, was Bill Clinton? I don't think Bill Clinton was ever actually properly impeached. He just left.
Yeah, he was.
He was, yeah.
Bill Clinton was impeached, and he rode out his impeachment trials.
Yeah, he didn't resign.
Yeah, he did, I think.
No,
he served out his term.
All right.
Actually, funnily enough, though,
Richard Nixon, I know.
I had thought the way that you're reacting to that until I was watching one of those documentaries on the 90s on TV.
Go on. Here's you got a laptop in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Go on Beto O'Rourke's campaign website. It's the funniest thing, unless it's changed. The only thing on Beto O'Rourke's campaign website last time I checked was merchandise and donate. No policy positions, nothing. Just, I'm running, buy my stuff.
Beto O'Rourke official website.
Beto for America. Landing page.
Where's his policies?
It's got a shop, a donation thing, and just a thing to join his grassroots campaign.
So it's basically sign up to my mailing list.
It doesn't actually specifically say what it stands for.
If I'm American and I want to support this man, what does he believe? Why would I give him my money? Why would I buy his stuff?
To be fair, he did, I think, go into the running a couple of days ago, so he might have not had time to write something yet.
But you would think.
Yeah, I would write the stuff beforehand.
Let people know where you stand.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm not going to sign up to someone's mailing list. I'm not going to donate to them, and I'm not going to support them to be my leader if I have no idea what they stand for.
All I know is that he's a Democrat that's a bit more left-leaning than most Democrats.
He like I say, he's attempting to be a populist. He's attempting to be a Trump-like figure. And I mean, I think the biggest Trump-like figure they've actually got on in the Democratic Party right now is Ocasio-Cortez. She's a fucking idiot.
I quite like her.
I keep seeing her.
She's an idiot.
Yeah, she's an idiot. She does say some stupid stuff sometimes, but I feel like
she's basically female Donald Trump. That is basically what she is. And, she's calling the media liars all the time, just the same as him. She says and does stupid shit all the time. She's basically his Democratic polar opposite, equivalent.
I feel like from what I've seen, a lot of it's focused on trivial things, like the fact that she was dancing.
Yeah, nobody was outraged about that. Nobody was outraged about that at all. There was one person that tweeted about it. And it wasn't a maybe, there was one person that tweeted about it. And then suddenly there were headlines saying conservatives are outraged. It was one person. And it caused headlines. You know, I don't trust the mainstream media at all anymore. I think they're activists, not journalists.
Was there a time when you did? But
well,
they're obviously a lot worse now. But
I feel like there was a time when they at least liked to confirm sources. They liked to be truthful. They liked to at least try. But now it's just they're activists, all of them.
Yeah.
And they've got their slant. They've got the way that they want you to see things, and they don't give a flying fuck about whether or not they confirm sources. It would appear these days, because the amount of times they have to retract stories now is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? It was. I think one of the biggest perpetrators was BuzzFeed. A few weeks ago, they said that they've got confirmation that Michael Cohen had been directly told by Donald Trump to lie to Congress, and then in like the rarest of rares, when it comes to that Mueller investigation, Mueller's office actually came out and said, "No, this is not true." And still, BuzzFeed refused to retract story. Yeah. They say, our source is good. No, your source is not good, BuzzFeed. You're activists.
Yeah, it's a balance thing as well, though, isn't it? Because it's like, I mean, it's important not to have to reveal sources to some extent, but at the same time, that's open to abuse, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And at the same time, when the actual special counsel doing the investigation comes out and says it's not true, it's probably not true.
Yeah.
Because he rarely breaks his silence at all when it comes to that investigation. And he actually came out, and still to this day, BuzzFeed will not retract that story because they want it to be true.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Next story, UK signs post-Brexit trade deal with Pacific Islands.
Oh, did not know.
Pacific Islands being...
I'm guessing that's a more vague collective term for a lot of islands in the Pacific, like Fiji and Samoa.
What do we get from Fiji?
But I don't feel like we really get a huge amount from the Pacific Islands. We get bananas, I think, mostly from Central America.
Right.
Or
I'm not aware, but any trade deal, if it's a free trade deal, is always a good thing for both parties involved.
Yeah, generally. But I don't feel like it's
got to be a fairly conditional trade deal if it's a post-Brexit trade deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we're not allowed to sign trade deals at the moment.
Yeah.
It's just sort of, if the deal goes
Where did this come from, anyway?
The Guardian.
The Guardian.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably true, but the Guardian are probably one of the biggest offenders in this country for just... Did you know who Owen Jones is?
Yes.
Oh, my God. What a... I've got so much I could say about that man. He's just vile. He's a vile human being.
I feel like there's some opposing views here.
Any particular reason?
Huh?
Any particular reason? Because
he consistently lies. He's Corbyn's little lapdog. He's basically pound shop Jeremy Corbyn.
Right.
And Jeremy Corbyn's not a good guy. Not at all. The Labour Party is a party that I supported my entire life. I'm actually politically homeless. I've got nobody to vote for because nobody represents my position. And Labour, like I say, they're a party I supported my entire life because I'm working class and they're the party of the working class. They're not anymore.
I would say that they've gotten more towards supporting the working class nowadays, though.
I absolutely, completely, 100% vehemently disagree. They despise us.
How so?
How so? Look how they consistently attack and call people far right who are not. That's consistent. They do that quite often. It's just a way to. It's a get out clause, basically. Owen Jones is one of the biggest perpetrators of this. Look how they don't really campaign anymore in working class neighbourhoods. Jeremy Corbyn is he wants to go to the preppy things like the Glastonbury Festival and stuff like that. That's not a place for the working class. Let's face it, it's not. They're just courting these.
I think it's a place for the youth vote, though.
Yes, but you say the youth vote. It's not really representative of the youth of this country, is it? Not really.
I mean, you're not going to find a whole lot of old folks there.
What, Glastonbury?
Yeah.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, you will. Yeah.
All right.
Glastonbury is basically hippie land.
It costs a lot to go there, and you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very different. I've only been once, but it's very different from when that was.
I've only been once.
That was The Cure back in. Who, incidentally, I think are headlining again this year. Back in the early 90s.
But no, the Labour Party is not the party of the working class, because it was the working class that delivered the Brexit vote at the end of the day, and it was the working class that delivered that vote, and they don't support it. They don't support them. I mean, I don't. Like I say, I voted Remain, and I'm severely, absolutely conflicted, because I'm a lover of democracy. I believe in democracy, and I believe.
But there are many forms of democracy, aren't there? And direct democracy like that isn't what our democracy has sort of evolved to, or maybe it is becoming that. But parliamentary democracy is a different thing.
I think ruling by referenda is a very bad idea, personally.
Yeah. But
that's what they chose to do. And when they put out the official paperwork, they promised to implement the vote.
They cocked
up. Now you're going to have 7. Yeah, of course they did. They absolutely cocked up. They only called the vote, right? So you've had 3 mandates for the vote, as far as I'm concerned, from the British public. The first one was when they offered, the Conservative Party under David Cameron offered to call the vote in response for being elected to government, and then they were elected to government. So they called the vote. There's your mandate again. And then just recently, during the last general election in 2015, I believe it was, every party stood on a pro-Brexit manifesto.
Yeah.
So there's been 3 mandates, as far as I'm concerned.
You can't assume
Lib Dems have never stood on
everyone believes in the same things just because that's what's being campaigned on. Because you'll be very different from your average Remain voter, I would say.
Well, I believe that 70% of Labour constituencies voted Leave, and that's not reflected in the party at all.
Although apparently, this was on our last episode, now that they're supporting a second referendum, and obviously you can't tell if this is an exact correlation, but they have seen a surge in support back in their heartlands.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
Well, yes, but still, I just don't feel like, right now anyway, they're for the working class. I mean,
it's difficult to comment on that because we don't have any Labour representation up here, so it's kind of...
Yeah, I feel like it's...
I actually live in one of the only towns that's got a Lib Dem MP.
All right.
Yeah, you're generally supporting the Lib Dems, which I feel like in this Brexit thing have just sort of...
See, in the next election, I would actually
ignored.
vote SNP because they're the only chance of getting Colin Clark out of Gordon.
Yeah, the Tories have had quite a surge in Scotland.
I think the SNP are problematic, personally.
I would suggest that the Tories are far more problematic to the country as a whole.
I agree with most of their policies.
So it isn't an ideal situation, but the Lib Dems, who are my first choice, don't stand a chance here, which is why I don't like the electoral system that we have.
No, first past the post is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's not representative of the country. And whilst I don't want UKIP to have more power, it's still more democratic to have people that support UKIP proportionally represented.
The SNP got returned with 56 MPs on less than 1 million votes, and UKIP got 4 million votes and got 1 MP.
Yeah, but then can you? Because if you take population density into account, would that not mean that the whole of Scotland would pretty much be one constituency compared to some of the,
No.
compared to London?
No, definitely not.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't think that. I think Scotland's got.
It would have much larger constituencies, but definitely not to that degree. Highest.
But I mean, for instance, up here where we are, I mean, you could see a constituency covering pretty much from Inverness down to Perth or Dundee, which is, well, I don't know. To be honest, I don't think our constituency is well represented anyway by the Tories. But
the thing is, my constituency definitely isn't represented.
Where are you?
I'm in Eastbourne on the south coast.
Right. Okay.
The largest electorate is actually the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Followed by Northwest Cambridgeshire. So a lot of the London ones are actually put into smaller things. But then you got West Ham, which is quite big. But if we go down, like, you have to go quite far down to find anything from Scotland.
Where's our constituency?
If I organise it in terms of... This is boring, but...
You guys have got old wee Jimmy Cranky as First Minister, haven't you? Oh man, I'm not a fan of what they've done to a Scottish man called Marcus Meechin, also known as Count Dankula.
Right.
He's an internet comedian who taught his dog to do a Nazi salute.
All right. Okay.
Which I would say is another example of a bad joke, but that didn't really deserve the sort of outrage it got.
Did he need to be dragged through the courts for 2 years and given a criminal record for it? No, I don't think so. But that's what the SNP did.
Gordon's not on there.
Our constituency.
That's because you're in the England bit.
Oh, that'll be why I can't find anything for Scotland. Okay, well, is there like a whole UK one?
No, but there's Scotland.
Okay, so the highest population one in Scotland is 86,000.
Yeah.
There's 100,000 people in my town.
Yeah, but is that split up into several constituencies?
No, we've got one MP.
There's only one on this list that's...
electorate and people are different, so...
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
If you don't mind saying, what is your constituency?
Eastbourne.
Yeah, we're in Eastbourne. So we've got Stephen Lloyd, Liberal Democrat MP. And I have to admit, he's a great MP. He's a lovely man. And he really cares about this town.
Oh, this is so annoying to...
I just don't care for the Liberal Democrats or their policies. That's just me.
Eastbourne's actually 78,000 in terms of electorate. As an electorate.
Okay. But yeah, we are a very small town.
Whereas the smallest one in Scotland has 21,000 in the Outer Hebrides. So
I'm surprised they've got that many out there, actually.
The vast majority of Scotland's constituencies are below yours in terms of their electorate.
And we're a small town.
So you're less represented than us, I think.
I would probably agree.
Oh, actually, no, we've actually got a higher population in our constituency, apparently. Just by about 1,000.
It's quite a big area, though, Gordon.
Yeah. That's actually one of the larger constituencies I've seen.
It used to be Alex Salmons.
Yeah.
Okay. Hasn't he been Me Too'd lately?
Yeah, pretty much.
Which, I mean, he's a cunt, so
I think they spend an awful lot of money on that as well.
I don't know. I don't know. I just think right now I'm personally politically homeless. Like I say, I like Stephen Lloyd as a man, and I like the way he works for our town and the way he tries to represent us and how much he cares. I just don't care for the Liberal Democrats.
Yeah, so when you don't actually agree with any of the parties, you have to base it on local policy after that point.
Well, I can't vote. I can't vote. I cannot vote because I've got nobody here that I could give my vote to on policy.
Right.
I just can't.
Are there no like local MPs that are specifically local?
The only other person that could win here would be the Conservative candidate, and fuck that.
Yeah. So at some point it comes down to tactical voting to find the person that you least hate.
Absolutely, and that's my problem that I've got at the moment is because I want a codified constitution guaranteeing certain freedoms in this country, and there's just no party that wants to do that.
It would be interesting to see how, I don't know if there's any way they can determine it, but how many of the electorate are voting tactically at the next election, because it's for the first time I would have to just to get the Tories out of ours.
But this is the thing: if I feel like because I like to keep a track on how well the candidate's going to do here, and if I feel like the Tory was going to win, because she could very well win again, because she ousted Stephen Lloyd last time. Stephen Lloyd only got his seat back in 2015, so she ousted him in 2010. Was it 20? I don't know. Last time, if I feel like she's going to oust him again, I'll have to vote for him because I don't want another Tory in my town.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next story. Nigel Farage starts Leave Means Leave march.
You mean that march he's not actually going to be going on all of anymore because nobody signed up for?
Oh, right. I thought the news stories were saying that he was going to lead it, and I think it was meant to be today, but...
wasn't.
Yeah, the march has begun, but Nigel's not going to do the whole thing anymore because virtually nobody signed up for it.
I only briefly saw this one. It seems like an awfully long march. Is it over a few days or weeks?
Sunderland to London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any reference for where Sunderland is in my mind, so...
Northeast. It's not too far south of the border, actually. It's around sort of Newcastle area.
Northeast. So you would be marching for a day or two?
Yeah.
So I think it's over several days.
Yeah, it's probably over 200 miles.
Oh, well, look, I can understand why not many people have actually signed up then. Because
I believe only 350 people total signed up for it.
Yeah,
which is not a lot of people in the grand scheme of things.
It's a long way to ask. I presume they may be asking people to do sections of it and not the whole thing because it's an awfully long.
I honestly don't know. I believe 200 people set off on it today. something along those lines. But it has been an absolute disaster. And I think Farage is just a fucking idiot. I think they're all fucking idiots.
Yeah, pretty much.
I really do. I mean, look at what we've got in number 10. Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, I can't believe... Remember when the media dragged Jeremy Corbyn for allegedly calling her a stupid woman? She is a fucking stupid woman.
Yeah.
That's objectively true. She's stupid and she's a woman. Jesus Christ.
Totally agreed. Yeah.
Okay, next. Scientists demand prohibition of human genetic modification.
Well, yeah, I can see that. We don't want no Professor X's being genetically modified, do we?
Nah. I feel like... I don't know, because...
I don't know enough about it, but might that have an effect on possible genetic treatments for certain conditions? Or is that done differently?
Well, the thing is actually, yes, that there could be some great benefits going down that route, but there also could be some great abuses, so I can understand.
I think possibly blanket prohibition's not a good idea.
You don't want to go...
prohibition on anything is not a good idea.
Yeah.
You don't want to go down the route of eugenics, but there are benefits of genetic solutions.
One of the is it Norway or Sweden? One of those countries has finally declared, thanks to eugenics, of course, that they have eradicated Down syndrome, and by that they mean they've legislated that every Down's baby is aborted.
Right.
Which is
At what point does?
But would it be better to genetically modify so that child still has a life
Well, this is an interesting one because if there was a way to have had you genetically modified so that you didn't have autism, would you think we would have been right to have taken that choice?
I don't know.
Because you wouldn't have been you, would you?
Yeah.
No. This is the thing. My son is 5 years old, and we're going through the process of having him assessed for autism.
Yeah.
And he's great.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, he's just such a light.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want him any other way.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's part of who they are, isn't it?
Yeah.
There are some conditions that have that more mental side to them that...
Yeah, I mean, maybe if they're a debilitating condition or a life-threatening condition. I mean,
the thing is, I don't even think in my circumstance I'd want my life any differently.
Really?
I am happy, and also I'm not ashamed to say that I've used my condition to springboard me into certain places. Like I say, I'm a disability ambassador for the Disneyland Paris.
Yeah, we get the we went to Disney World in 2011, and we've done the same at Disneyland Paris. Actually, haven't we? We get in the. I mean, it's a different system at Disney World now, but it's still beneficial to the whole family. But we kind of see it as not payback, but it's kind of, you know, we go through enough struggles that most people don't.
I don't even mean it in that way, like I get the disability access. You know, I'm using my position to carve out a niche in media.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
other people would not be carving out.
Yeah.
I love my life, quite frankly. I'm in debilitating pain all day, every day, and I'm on so many painkillers, and I'm on so many muscle relaxants. But at the same time, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh, it's good to hear.
Sorry, my voice just went.
And I hope that you will look at your situation in life, even though, and you'll say that that's unique to you, and that's going to be your quirk. It's going to be whatever going forward in life, and just accept yourself and embrace it. And if you want to, use it to springboard you forward in life, because why not?
Yeah,
I've found
why not?
Quite oddly that, because I think it's often said of people with autism that they have problems with empathy, where they can't really understand something from another person's perspective. But I find that I actually do that too much.
Well, that's because you reason it through, don't you? You look for the logical reasons behind the way people respond to things.
The thing is, I've been told a lot that I'm probably on the spectrum, because all I ever do is I overthink and I overanalyze, and I couldn't care less at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I do sometimes have a problem with empathy myself. That's true. But
how do we get onto that from human genetic modification?
Well, because if human genetic modification means that autism was eradicated.
Yeah, I was thinking, at what point is
that a good thing?
Is something regarded as eugenics or treatment? Because eugenics you would tend to think of as kind of making sort of superhuman improvements to something, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Whereas,
or remove it. I don't know.
Or eradicating something bad.
Yeah. But wherever you start on the scale, you're still making the same kind of jump.
But you still need to come from that position that it is bad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, your son is not bad. There's nothing wrong with your son. There's nothing wrong with my son.
Yeah.
Hell, there's nothing wrong with me, even though I'm physically fucked.
Yeah. We're just all different.
Exactly. We play the hand we're dealt.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be fucking with that.
If there was a way for adults to consent to being genetically modified, do you think that would be all right?
Right, yeah.
That is different. I think an autonomous human being, we have agency, we can make decisions for ourselves.
Yeah.
This is why I'm also an advocate of all drugs being legal, even though I don't take drugs, because I don't think that the government should be telling us what we can and can't put in our bodies.
Same
we should
here.
be able to, over the age of 18, we should be able to choose what the hell we do to ourselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think multiple studies have actually shown that when drugs are legalized, at least for cannabis, that actually lowers consumption.
The usage goes down.
Yeah. Well, because
when something's taboo, you want to do it.
I was just going to say, with regards to the sort of choice of whether or not you get genetic modification, essentially it's the same as deciding whether or not you should be allowed to choose to wear a pair of glasses if you have defective eyesight.
Yeah.
You know?
At the end of the day, an autonomous human being, we've all got agency, we've all got minds of our own, and I think over a certain age, say 18, let's use that as a baseline, decide what the hell you want to do for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is that you can't really actually do that, at least not yet. So...
And it'll be available to the people with the money first anyway, as is everything.
Of course.
Yes, of course. And, this is why I've got absolutely fuck all. It goes back to the last conversation. I've got fuck all anyone to vote for because they don't believe what I believe.
Yeah.
And I believe in the most freedom, and I believe in the power of the individual and not the group.
Yeah.
Okay. Savage Javid urged to vote on refugee family reunification bill.
What's that about?
Elaborate.
I haven't actually looked into this article personally. I'll try and find it.
Just put the headline up.
I didn't have a lot of time before this. He's the Home Secretary?
Yes, he is.
I know there's been all sorts of problems with families being separated because of different... There was one woman that's been living here like 60 odd years and found that she's had to reapply for her citizenship.
Yeah, but that's not to do with her being a refugee.
This appears to be, if we've got refugees here, from what, just me paraphrasing, and I could be absolutely wrong, but from the headline you've just read me, it seems to be that if we've got refugees here, we're going to be looking at whether or not we can bring their families in.
Right.
That's what I got from the headline. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But
it's a fairly non-committal way of phrasing it, because reunification could actually just involve sending them back to where their family are.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to.
No.
I think it's going to be bringing more people in.
Yeah.
So I find... it's always annoying that on Microsoft News, sometimes the news stories just reappear and disappear.
Maybe we should just move on, because we've been going for like an hour and 3/4.
Okay. I'll try and move on. Remain supporting Tory MP Nick Bowles leaves local party, which means that he's not actually leaving the Conservative Party, he's just leaving his local branch of the Conservative Party. Okay. Which I'm not sure what that actually means, but it just means that I think he had a row with some people in his area and over.
But they probably think he's a twat.
How can he leave the local party if is he elected for his local constituency? Like
we have the Conservatives for Scotland.
Yeah.
If they were still part of the Conservatives, but not for Scotland.
Right.
Sort of.
Okay.
I think they're southeast or something. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, all I hear is Tory, and then I just hear
switch off.
Yeah.
I think there's a common thread there.
Okay, next. Okay, this comes back to the New Zealand gunmen saying that they had more attack plans.
Yeah, well, didn't they arrest 4 of them, like 3 men and 1 woman?
Oh right, I only saw that the shooter at the mosque got arrested.
There were 2 mosques attacked at once, I believe.
Oh, was there? I didn't know that.
There was definitely 2 mosques.
I know there were 49.
I don't know if he went from
49 casualties.
Because 49 casualties, I think there might be more wounded.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he went from one mosque to the other, or there was 2 simultaneous. But it was 2 mosques.
I need to swap cameras.
I know there's been four arrests.
Our camera GoPro just went, so we've got a second one.
Where is it?
Oh, this is so professional.
Hold on, while I've got this.
What have I done with it?
While I've got this a minute. Alright.
I've lost it.
You're an idiot.
I've lost the other camera. I got it out ready to swap.
Fucking moron.
What did I do? I've lost the camera. Fuck it.
Fine,
we're still on the other one.
We'll just go without a camera feed then. Okay. Well, we'll try round this up as quickly as possible because
New Zealand arrests. I mean, yeah, I believe there's four arrests.
You're an idiot. You are absolutely moronic.
Well, this is how it usually goes with us, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it would help if you actually knew where you put things.
Sydney, Australia. At least 49 were killed, more than 20 seriously wounded Friday in shootings at 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand. 3 men and 1 woman are in custody.
All right.
That's
I've only heard about the main suspect for the sort of plotting of the whole thing, I guess.
Well, because the original one says the suspect goes to court.
Yeah, because he's the only one that's been charged so far.
Right.
Because you can't deny he did it. He put a camera on his shoulder, fucking streamed it like it was a fucking PlayStation game.
Yeah.
Right.
If you've seen the footage.
I haven't. I've kind of deliberately
a lot of
not looked for it.
What do you think about people saying that it should be taken down?
Right. So once again, I think people are human beings and can make their own choices to whether or not they want to watch something. But at the same time, on my Twitter feed on the day it happened, Twitter's got the autoplay feature when you scroll through. Through your feed, it just autoplays the videos. Yeah. And if somebody else has liked it that I follow, or they shared it, it was appearing in my feed and it was just playing.
Yeah.
So it was just there in front of my eyes, and I had a bit of a go at Twitter about that.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, kids use Twitter, and it wasn't even like hidden behind like a sensitive material or anything like that.
I know sometimes they have that for some of the replies. And then you click on that, and it turned out to be absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
but for stuff that would actually like traumatize you, it doesn't put a filter on that.
It's some of the most cold, brutal, and ruthless shit I've ever seen in my life. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
You know, I will quickly describe. There were groups of people cowered in corners, and he would just walk up to them and shoot them.
Yeah.
It was just, I was forced to watch.
I mean, I've seen stuff like that on TV dramas, but when you know it's real and you know it's especially, I mean, people who must have actually seen it while it was streaming, knowing it was happening at that time.
I mean, I had a field day on Twitter that day.
Yeah.
I was going mad at people because they shouldn't be sharing it.
Yeah.
If you want to view it, that's fine. Do not share it.
Yeah.
It's like I say, you can't unsee it once you see it. And there are, like I say, there are 4 suspects. I know that the second mosque only didn't have more casualties in it because someone in the mosque had a gun and shot back.
Right.
And shooter ran off.
Yeah. Well, that'll be some ammunition for the gun lobbies then.
Yeah. But I'd seen that New Zealand's pretty much immediately tightening up gun restrictions, even though in America there's been thousands of mass shootings over the last decade or so, and
depends what you declare. You call a mass shooting.
I think a mass shooting technically is declared as a shooting of 4 or more people.
Yeah, so if you want to take it at that, there's not been thousands at all. Whereas if you want to take it as what the media tend to use 2 or more.
Yeah.
Right.
So the official declaration and what the media use are usually 2 different things. And like I say, the media, once again, they're activists. So
I have to say though, I'm not particularly any less kind of horrified by 4 people getting shot than by 2 people getting shot. I mean, obviously it's twice as many, but it's still almost as bad.
But once again, it's just a way to manipulate people
Figures.
And pull on people's heartstrings, and
which is what they're best at, or worst at.
At the same time, I also believe in the concept of the Second Amendment. I believe in people being able to arm themselves, because I believe that is how you protect yourself from a tyrannical government.
Right.
The US First Amendment, the 5 freedoms, I think: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press.
Okay.
There's 5 freedoms of the First Amendment, but the Second Amendment protects the First Amendment, and I think the First Amendment is probably one of the most important things on this planet.
Yeah. Mass shootings that exclude gang killings, domestic violence, or terrorist acts, which is defined as killing at least 4 victims. There have been 90 in the US. But I'm assuming with things that are defined as domestic violence, gang killings, or terrorist acts, there have been far more. Or if you use a lower number of victims, there have been far more.
I don't know, but I would imagine domestic shootings are probably one of the highest risks, because.
Well, I think it's in America. It's usually gang violence,
right?
And once again, they're not actually doing anything to tackle the problem there.
No,
at all.
No,
they're just not. But like I say, I believe in the right to arm yourself. I think that it's the only way to protect yourself from tyranny, and I think that this is why I'm ashamed to be British at the moment. I think we're going down quite a tyrannical path right now. I think we're encroaching on freedoms. We're encroaching on speech.
I do, but I don't think we should be armed to deal with that. I think that would be like throwing fuel on a fire.
But then, at the same time, how do you deal with it if they take away your right to say anything?
Well, I'd be interested to see what happens with this march next Saturday. In London, see how many turn up and how they respond to the numbers.
I'll be watching I'll be in Paris, but I'll be watching from abroad.
Yeah, it's whether or not I know they've just thrown a load of money at the police. I suppose specifically it's been for targeting knife crime, hasn't it? But it would be interesting to see how well the police can deal with it, and whether or not. Be interesting to see whether or not the military are brought in at all. It depends on how many people turn up, doesn't it?
I don't think many will turn out, if I'm honest with you. I could be horribly wrong, but at the end of the day.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. If I wasn't busy and I was near enough, I would go.
At least they aren't marching from Sunderland to London, which I suppose would give them quite a bigger turnout then.
Yeah, it all just depends on how many turn out. The thing is, I found that people in the Remain camp are definitely more likely to turn out.
Yeah,
because it's just the way it is.
Well, it's always the ones that are kind of protesting against something that's happening that have a louder voice, if you like, isn't it?
Yeah.
The leave means leave people are just protesting for them to hurry up with it.
Oh yeah,
they've already won. Really?
Well, have they? They've won on paper, but I do think that this is going to go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And the thing is, at the end of the day, a lot of the people who voted leave are the type of people who, if we go right back to the beginning of the conversation, we're talking about far right. Yes, the far right did vote leave. Yes, they did. And yes, when they do something, it is more likely to be deadly than when the far left do something.
Yeah.
And it's just a fact. It's the far right don't do things as often, but when they do it, it's usually deadly.
It's just nobody can see a way out now, can they? We've dug this hole, and there doesn't seem to be a
that being deadly. that's a very definite way to silence free speech by killing someone, which is what they're doing, I think.
Yeah, but then you martyr people.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And in Star Trek, in quoting Star Trek, you can't silence a martyr.
Yeah,
as
but
William Riker
do you
said.
think Joe Cox has been martyred?
I
mean, there was outrage at the time, but it didn't really change anything.
I
think it shocked a lot of people.
I think also Brendan Cox being quite a scumbag has undone that, because the focus is when he was outed as basically a woman abuser, or it's some kind of scumbag, and the focus went there rather than on the memory of Joe.
It'd be interesting to see where that news came from originally. Well.
Yeah, because some places would rather throw attention off what they're trying to push, the opposition to that.
It's all appearances, isn't it?
Okay, before we end up doing like a 3-hour-long podcast,
yeah,
I'm gonna get on to the last news story of our first segment.
Go right ahead.
Bolsonaro, that's the new president of Brazil, visits Trump to firm up conservative alliance.
Okay, yep, they're both very conservative politicians. I wouldn't call Bolsonaro far right like the media do. I would call him just a hardline conservative.
I would say that he's just vile as from everything.
I'd say he's a hardline conservative. So
nothing either of you said contradicted each other at all there, though. Vile and conservative kind of go hand in hand.
Well, it depends what you mean by conservative, because obviously in the sense of the British politician, of course, but I mean, I've got some friends who would be classed as conservatives, but not in that sense. You know, they're religious, or they're very controlled in their life, and
right,
they're just conservative.
But from what I've seen, I mean, he's not the most controlled, I would say, but
no, not at all. But I'd say he's just a hardline.
To quote, I think he said, "I wouldn't rape you because you're not worth it."
Okay.
I mean, where that definitely puts you in the vile spectrum, but it's don't tell me where you are politically.
yeah. I mean, I think he said a whole bunch of things against black people in Brazil, and I think he said if he had a gay son, he'd rather that they were in a car accident than be gay.
Well, I would say that's the stance of most hardline conservative Christians, isn't it?
Well, I think they just don't really say it out loud that much.
No,
but they'd rather something that violent happen. But
oh no, absolutely
I mean,
not.
Westboro Baptist Church, yeah, but
I think that obviously there's something gone wrong in that country, or some problems that haven't been addressed in order for someone like that to be elected. Wasn't he stabbed whilst he was campaigning?
I think so, yeah. I think possibly, as we've said, just martyred him, but he did survive it, so...
Yeah, he was, I believe it, yeah. But I could see them two getting on. I could see Bolsonaro and Donald Trump getting on very well.
But from what I've heard, he's also extremely authoritarian, where he's supported the old regime, which was a military dictatorship. And he was actually, I think, part of the military at the time during that.
I mean, the one thing that I can commend him on is that he wants to stamp out the ideology of intersectionality. Now, I don't know either if you know what that is, but it's problematic. it separates people into groups. It creates one victim class over another based on race or sex, and I don't think that's the right way we should go.
But what I would say is that these far-right politicians are saying they are using intersectionality in a different way. Rather than defending a group, they're targeting them and saying they're the problem in this country. They're to blame for all your problems. And
I agree. It's just
that sends off red flags from the history and what's happened.
Oh no, I absolutely agree. And the thing is, I think that nobody should be pointing at a group of people based on immutable characteristics and saying they are responsible for this, that, or the other, because they're not.
Yeah, we seem to have come full circle.
Absolutely.
Well, I would say that's why I generally prefer candidates that label themselves as left wing, and that would more intersect by protecting rather than targeting.
I don't think that we should be focusing on groups at all based on immutable characteristics. I really don't.
Both sides do focus on characteristics.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't think they should. I think right now in life it's completely irrelevant, especially in Western civilization, where nobody's had it as so good as we've got it now. And
it doesn't mean that it definitely can't get better for quite a lot of groups.
Yes, but the way we do that is not to give them a leg up based, like I say, on immutable character.
Yeah, we're back. It's just
logic
after a while,
after a couple of hours.
Yeah.
But like I say, we would fall into a so-called protected class, or someone that would be given an equity status. And would you really, I personally, would you want to be told that you got the job because you're disabled or autistic, or would you want to be told you got the job because you were the best?
How do you
that doesn't happen though, as far as I'm aware.
How do you square that with what you were saying earlier about using that characteristic to springboard yourself forward in a particular field?
Because I'm doing it. Because that's the
right.
thing, though.
It's your choice,
and I'm using it.
Right.
For myself. I'm self-employed, and I do what I can do, and I know where my limits are, and I know whether or not I'm the best at what I do. And you know, that's when I was doing financial advising, I charged what I wanted, not because you're getting a disabled financial advisor, but because you're getting the damn best at what you do. You know, at the end of the day. But it's like Cressida Dick of the Metropolitan Police wants to severely discriminate against men to make the police force 50% women. Do you think that's a good thing to do?
Well, I think the problem is that women have been severely discouraged by society to become police officers.
But where's the evidence of that? You say women have been discouraged.
The classroom. And every conversation that you have where a woman's considered not to be physically able.
But then you say every conversation where a woman's considered not to be physically able. Have you seen the videos on YouTube? I'm not trying to disparage women here, but at the end of the day, when a woman is trying, a small female police officer is trying to subdue a large violent male offender, it's just not going to happen. There are videos out there of the female police officers having to run away because of this. You know.
Well, there was a time when you had to be a certain height to be a police officer as well.
I think there are certain jobs where a physical force is required. And I think that right now...
I would say, though, in the police force, having more conversation-based alternatives to how we're currently policing, and actually outreaching rather than just saying...
Prevention.
yeah, we just need to arrest this person because they did something. Instead, actually figuring out why they're doing this thing, because they're in poverty.
Oh, I completely agree with you. That's why we could go full circle back to the New Zealand shooter, and I say read his bloody manifesto.
Well, actually, in that particular instance, what you're saying, somebody with a less foreboding build, shall we say, may come across as less threatening in a situation where you're trying to present that kind of. So I suppose it's about role assignment, really, as well, isn't it?
Well, I just personally think that, you know, the conversation seems to not be being had that men and women are different anymore, because men and women are different. Men have more muscle mass, we have more bone density, we are stronger, we are bigger. That's just a fact. That's biology. And in general, yeah, I'm just generalizing here, but there are obviously exceptions. There always are. But in a situation where you've got violent offenders and large violent offenders and small women, who's coming out on top there? It's not going to be the female police officer. And like I say, there are videos out there that show this. And there are videos out there of male offenders knocking female police officers out. You know,
there is a lot of. I mean, there are a lot of roles that don't require that kind of. Surely within the police, there are a lot of roles that don't require that kind. I mean, it's like, you know, when you send an armed police person out, it's got to be somebody who's trained in a particular discipline. So, yeah. I mean, even a well-built bloke needs to have the proper training to subdue the violent criminal.
But I mean, I guess I'm generalising, and I could be more focused on, say, frontline policing.
Yeah.
But I think, in general, I think it's actually more dangerous to the women to be encouraging them to do frontline policing if they are of a small stature or a smaller build than it is helpful to them. You know, like I say, I'm all for equality and I'm all for equality of opportunity, but I think sometimes in certain roles you need to say, for your own safety, no. Like, even to men I think with frontline policing, frontline army, we should go back to, you need to be a certain height, you need to be a certain build, because I think you need, especially nowadays, with crime levels so high, I think you need that foreboding, intimidating stature, and that
you need an advantage.
Yeah, and
I think if you're able to sort of graduate, I don't think we have this system in the UK, graduate police academy, as it were, then, you know, sure, if you've passed a certain ability, if you passed a certain threshold saying you're strong enough to deal with the situations that might come up.
Yeah, no, like I say, there are exceptions. When I say men are, you know, different, more muscle mass, more bone density, it is a generalization. There are exceptions.
Yeah, but what you're saying is that the way Cressida Dick specifically is dealing with it of giving advantage to a specific group because of their gender, if you like, it's
going to get people hurt.
It's an irrelevant kind of criteria to judge people on.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and it's going to get people hurt. It seems like a good thing from a PR perspective, but in practice and in reality, it's not.
Oh, that's pretty much what the whole world's about at the moment, isn't it? PR.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, let's finally move on to our second segment.
These are usually a lot shorter.
Yeah, I mean, you haven't actually seen the film, so hopefully we won't find a way to talk for an hour about it. But
no, don't worry.
Stand by me.
Okay. Yeah, to break for segment pauses and things.
That's fine. It's easier to find the bit to edit when there's no waveforms in it.
Okay, so this is Utter Bollocks or Dog's Bollocks, and today we are reviewing Stand By Me.
Indeed.
which is a film about 4 boys that go to find a dead body.
It's a coming-of-age film, isn't it?
Sorry?
Sorry, yeah, I know what film you're talking about now.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I felt it had a very similar kind of pace and feel to Easy Rider, in terms of that kind of long drawn out kind of journey where you felt like there was going to be something significant happening at the end of it, kind of. But in that kind of,
I mean, I'm actually watching it because it's a film that I'm doing for National 5, which is basically, I think it's equivalent to GCSEs in Scotland.
Okay.
So I sort of had to watch it, but I very much still recommend it. Our previous review was, I mean, this is based on a Stephen King novel. Our previous review was also based on a Stephen King novel, The Shawshank Redemption. And I feel like both of them...
Well, that was based on a novella.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, so was this.
Yeah. I think the novella is actually called The Body.
And Shawshank is Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption, isn't it?
I don't know. I would assume so, if you say so. The thing with both of them is that they managed to play very well with tension. So I'll talk about a specific scene. There's a scene where they have to cross a bridge.
Oh, I did my head in that. I was just like on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, because he's got a fear of heights. And it's meant to be, I think, a 100-foot drop, which I'm not sure what that is in meters because my brain...
Well, it wasn't so much that. It was a fear of them getting run over by the train.
It's about 33 meters, so it's about 3 feet in a meter.
Okay. So they cross this bridge, and they've been following the train tracks for most of the film.
Right.
Because they've heard that the dead body was hit by the train and hit off the tracks, and that's how the person died.
So they can either cross this long bridge, or they can take a 5-mile detour to cross the river.
Yeah. And one of them's a bit of a hothead, so he just starts crossing anyway.
Risking, that they've got time to get across before a train comes.
So the 2 most confident ones manage to make it across. They're like, I think, 3/4 of the way across when the smartest one actually figures out that a train's about to come because they keep touching the train rails. And it's always cutting between their faces, looking down between the cracks in the track. Because one of the characters is absolutely terrified and they're crawling along being completely slow about it because they are terrified of this. So this long, drawn-out section where there's basically no dialogue.
Yeah, it was very quiet, wasn't it? Because it's set right out in, I don't know, is it somewhere in the southern states?
It's in Oregon.
Okay, my geography's shit.
Which is the northwest of America.
It looks warm there anyway and summery.
Just north of California.
Right. But it's got a great pace to it. I think it's really drawn out and kind of it's got that feel of lazy summers of childhood, just kind of exploring.
I feel like the second half got quite serious as well, which was appropriate.
Tell you what I didn't enjoy, and it's just a bit dated for me in that way, is Kiefer Sutherland in his youth just does my head in.
Yeah.
It was real Lost Boys era.
He plays the main antagonist.
But to be honest, that fitted the role because he was supposed to be an arsehole in the film.
Yeah, because there's a group of older boys that are meant to sort of parallel the group of younger boys, but the fact that he doesn't care about what any of his group actually thinks and just goes on his own anyway, and at one point tries to stab one of the boys who is 12.
Yeah, I believe I've seen. I believe I've seen it a long time ago. But like you say, just keep the Sutherland. There's just nothing. Well, I guess as he was acting alongside children, he was probably quite intimidating. But nowadays, back when he was doing 24, he must have been the shortest counter-terrorist expert in the world.
Well, it must have been creatively filmed because he did look quite tall in comparison to them. I'll tell you who did impress me, actually, surprisingly, was Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
Because I've only seen him as Wesley Crusher and an extra on Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
And I thought he actually acted really well in this film.
Yeah.
I thought, actually, he can act. Or he used to be.
Because when I was watching it in my English class, I didn't know for the entire film. It's just like, I recognise him. He just sort of looks like the past as a child.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the film, Will Wheaton is like, oh yeah, Wesley.
So, does it get a dog's bollocks or an utter bollocks?
Definitely, it's the dog's bollocks.
Okay.
And I don't know, when do you think you saw this?
When do I think I saw it?
Yeah.
Well, it came out in 1986.
I was going to say, it would have been in my youth, but I mean, I was born in 1989.
Right.
And I'm still a baby. I'm only 29. God, I'm 30 this year.
Actually, you're nearer to his age than mine then.
Wow.
Spring chickens.
And my oldest child is 10.
Yeah.
I don't know what that, I'm sorry, but it's too late for my brain to work out what that actually means. But
Well,
it means my oldest child is closer to him than I am. Like there's only 5 years difference between my son and mine.
Yeah, I was nearly 30 when I had my first.
yeah.
I was just 18.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, so Dog's Bollocks. Pretty happy with that. It's a very good film. Recommend you watch it. Okay, so last bit. I mean, we have already talked about this quite a bit in depth. Is our perspectives piece. And this is on the New Zealand shooter because I thought that would be an interesting thing to do.
Okay.
So this will just be looking at the various different ways that news sources have covered it.
Yeah, well, I'll defer to you for that.
Okay, so we've got the Google News app open, and that's just got basically how different newspapers or news sources have decided to put a headline on.
Have you heard of an app called NewsGuard?
No.
Right, if you want to, going forward, I would suggest you use it because it does exactly this. It takes news from different sources, tells you what their bias is, so if it's right-leaning, left-leaning, whatever, and then it rates it as trustworthy or not, as well.
I'm sure I've seen that somewhere.
I think it's Elon Musk wanted to start something like that called Pravda because he was unhappy about the negative press he was getting. So...
I'll just make a comment. The first item on the list there from the New York Times, I see that they're immediately launching into the gun law debate beginning.
Well, yeah, because...
Which is exactly what he says he wants.
Yeah, I would say, though, that they're within their right to just actually have some proper gun laws there, but... Because the way that they've... I think
I don't think anybody needs a semi-automatic assault rifle.
No.
Now let's not differentiate that between, let's say, nobody needs semi-automatic weapons altogether, because a handgun is a semi-automatic weapon.
Yeah.
And
in extreme circumstances, you might need that, but it's unlikely for the everyday person that you're gonna need a handgun on the street.
Oh no, I completely agree with you. But then at the same time, once again, I believe in the right to arm yourself. I just think you should be able to protect yourself and your family, because right now we live in the United Kingdom, and if we didn't have guns, we don't have guns. But if somebody broke into our house with a gun, how are we meant to fight back? How are we meant to fight back against that?
Well, generally, the thing is that they don't have guns.
Yeah, they do though. There's guns in every street in this country.
The other difficulty is that you would tend to... There's a risk that you're going to get taken to court and sued if you injure the person breaking in. You know?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. What was it? Woman got sued because a guy fell through her skylight and onto a knife. He was trying to break into her house.
Yeah.
And he fell through the skylight and he sued her. I mean, this country's pathetic.
Right. It's kind of a funny thing, that, though.
Well, this is the way I have to approach the news at the moment. It's just like with a sense of amused, a kind of bystander kind of status.
Okay, CNN's gone with New Zealand's PM. New Zealand PM's office received shooter's manifesto minutes before the attack.
Okay, that's, I think, a fine thing to say. I actually think CNN have been, usually they're quite biased in everything they do, but I actually think that they've probably been the most sensible about this from what I've seen when it comes to mainstream media.
I'd be interested to see if Fox has put anything out, because usually they're very
they're not journalists.
Sensationalist.
Yes, they're not journalists.
Okay.
Fox, BuzzFeed, HuffPo, they're just awful.
Yeah. From what I've seen of the Huffington Post, occasionally you'll get a worthwhile article, but when you actually dig into it, it doesn't actually look fantastic.
Never is.
Okay.
What's this at USA Today? How a hero in New Zealand musketeer used cat and mouse chase, shoot his own gun to save lives.
Basically, I think they picked up the shooter's gun and chased off the suspects. Which,
if they hadn't done that, this is why, once again, I'm forearming yourselves, because if they hadn't done that, there would have almost definitely been more loss of life.
That's interesting.
Okay. A couple of them have just sort of got very factual things, like the Washington Post has got main suspect in mosque massacre that killed 49 who appears in court.
Yeah.
Similarly with CNN on live updates, because there's multiple news stories from a couple of the things. New York Times has also got that Jacinda Ardern, which is the New Zealand PM, consoles families.
Yeah. But the thing is, you know as well as I do, there's a terrorist attack going on somewhere in this world every single day.
Mm.
Yeah, it just matters if it's a place that people actually care about. Like
exactly, and it's wrong. It's wrong. Any senseless loss of life is no more important than the next one.
I do get a bit jaded by the idea of it being a bit arbitrary who labels somebody a terrorist. I mean, obviously, this guy, in what he did, was.
Yeah, well, I think there's a very... I think words have meaning, and I think sometimes people get called terrorists that clearly aren't. Like the Las Vegas, for example. He was not a terrorist. You have to...
just
a clear political or religious motivation would be terrorism.
Right.
But apart from that, it's not. It's mass murder.
I think I did an essay on this where I defined it as use of violence to acquire political means that breaks the Geneva Convention.
Well, that is a way to describe it. It has to be political, and I use religious as well, because religion is always political.
Yeah. Okay. This is interesting again from CNN, saying Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter struggled to deal with New Zealand shooting video, as you've said.
So, yeah. But
if it's put up somewhere, then they can't always know.
Every time one came down, two more were going up.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like the majority of these massive social media organisations are too big for their own kind of for themselves to
I think they each have about 100,000 staff.
They've outgrown their own level of possible control.
And that means that they have to turn to AI to moderate this, and obviously...
Which is never a good idea.
Yeah, YouTube's kind of shown that things can just randomly be taken down or demonetized that have no good reason to be.
Well, what was it? I was watching a video of someone actually the other day. He's got a Pokemon Go channel, and it's a very big channel. And he had 3 strikes and his channel deleted because he had just the letter CP, which is a point system within Pokemon Go, in the titles of his videos. The YouTube AI mistook that for meaning child porn and deleted the channel.
Yeah.
All right. That is bizarre.
Yeah, and it did it to his friend as well, who also has a Pokemon Go channel, and it pulled their channels down completely. You can't rely on artificial intelligence to regulate this sort of thing. And then at the same time, I do think, like you say, they've got far too big to be moderated. There's nowhere near enough staff to moderate them.
Yeah.
So you've got to go down a route now of, I think, regulation on these social media sites. I think you've got to
chop them up.
They're either a publisher, and then they've got to censor or publish as a publisher, or they're the new public square. In which case, you've got to let people do what they do.
Yeah.
So there's no middle ground anymore because you can't moderate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's been said of the internet that it's the greatest experiment in anarchy the world has ever seen. Which
ever since the internet went public, it's just humanity is. I despair sometimes. I really do.
I think some good things can come of it, but
it could be a massive force for good. But
you really have to look for it.
We got to remember we're in the infancy, the baby steps of the future with it. I mean, I was your age, I think, before I even had the internet.
Yeah, probably.
So I remember that world that we watched in Stand By Me. I remember walking around the countryside with friends like that, with no smartphone.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah,
our childhoods will be. My generation was probably the last generation to have an actual childhood.
Yeah, in that sense. I mean, you've got a childhood, but it's completely different to the childhoods that came before you.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult for me to say because I'm less on social media than I think most people my age are. Because I just found that I was more miserable being on a lot of the social media, being actively engaged in it, rather than just occasionally scrolling to see what's been happening.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good thing because I think it's been proved to be an addiction.
Yeah,
it is an addiction. And like you say, it is really. I think we're still in the infancy of not just social media but the internet.
But it's very useful to do something like this where we can just communicate without having to actually, send a letter.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a good thing because we're in completely different parts of the country and it's like we're having a conversation in the room.
Yeah.
We're not typing what we say.
Literally, pretty much opposite ends of the country.
Yeah, I'm literally on the south coast.
Mind you, you could just as easily be in New Zealand. So,
yeah.
I mean, the connection would be slightly laggier, but
yeah, not noticeably.
Yeah,
but I think that social media is not a force for good. I think it was meant to be, and I think it's not that anymore.
People ruin a lot of things.
It's the humans in the room.
Facebook's basically a boot sale now.
Yeah.
That is basically what Facebook is. It's a boot sale, or it's evil people doing fucking foul stuff on a live stream. And this is not the first time evil people have done stuff on a fucking Facebook live stream. Do you remember, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, an autistic boy was kidnapped and then was tortured on a Facebook live stream for being white?
I don't remember that, but
it could have been in Texas, or it could have been Chicago, but it was in America, and he was an autistic teenager, and he was kidnapped off the street and tortured on a Facebook live stream.
Well, that's the world we live in.
Yeah, that is the world we live in.
It's interesting to see how Vox is deciding to covering this.
I was just looking at that. New Zealand mosque shooting. White nationalism is on the rise in the US too.
Jesus Christ. No, it's not. I'm sorry, but it's not. Actual white nationalists are a tiny minority with a loud voice. It's not on the rise. It's thanks to social media that they've got this voice.
They're focusing more closely on them.
Well, exactly. And I mean, you focus on someone like Richard Spencer, who is a white nationalist in the United States, right? But 12 people show up to his talks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then this person with 12 people that shows up to his talks gets all this media attention and is lauded up as proof that white nationalism is on the rise. 12 people show up to his talks. It doesn't seem like on the rise to me. Does it to you?
No.
I mean, I think a lot of what the my brain's just gone to shit.
We're lagging.
Well, I mean, it is nearly midnight.
It is.
Yeah. A lot of what the problem is that whilst people might not be white nationalists, is that they're just getting used to that sort of language, and it sort of shifts the window of what seems normal.
Well, yeah, but I mean, also the window of what seems far right has been shifted as well. I mean, in this country, anybody to the fucking right, Jeremy Corbyn appears to be far right.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I would say that Theresa May's centre right, to be honest.
Yeah, I would say that
the current climate.
Most of the Conservative Party are centre right. I wouldn't say they're at all far right. I would in fact say that a lot of their policies these days verge left. But they're not far right, not at all. I think, like I said earlier, when it came to terrorism, words have meaning, and we are taking that meaning away from words. And you call someone who criticises immigration a racist. They're not a racist. Generally, they're just criticising levels of immigration.
I think it depends on what language they use.
Yeah, how they decide to say it.
Of course, but would you call Nigel Farage a racist?
Yes.
Would you?
Based on what I've heard him say, yes.
I mean, he definitely. Well, I've never actually heard him attack anybody based on their race at all. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never heard that.
Right. I've heard him quite specifically attacking Poles, and in a lot of his campaigns, he's very much targeting fears of Muslims coming into the country.
Yes, but Muslims are not a race.
No, but the sort of skin colour generally of the Arab Spring, which is majority Muslim.
Obviously, you could try and generalise it down like that, but there's nothing that I've ever heard that man do that's overtly racist, or heard him say that I would actually call racist. I would call him definitely a provocateur, maybe.
I was just going to say, he seems to have the art of manipulation down to a T.
Yeah,
he's very capable of kind of.
Well, with 0 MPs or 1 MP, he's managed to engineer Brexit.
Well, he's been doing it. He's been planning that for 25 years.
Yeah.
but he's a twat. But you know, like I say, words have meaning, and if I heard him doing something overtly racist, I'd quite happily say it, right? Because I don't like the man. I don't like the man at all. But I wouldn't call him a racist. Not from what I've seen, anyway.
Right.
And words, meanings, definitions, far right, it's all just being changed to suit the narrative at the moment. And you can't believe any of it. I don't believe it's once again, it's social media, isn't it?
Yeah.
It does more harm than good. And it also is a place that people radicalise. Because
yeah, I mean, coming down to that bit, what you were saying about you can't believe anything, I just cannot read anything or hear anything, see any news article, read any news article without thinking about what the agenda is.
Yes.
You know, what the aim of the piece is, and not that it's just reporting of facts.
No, it's because it's not anymore. Because I'll hammer this point home until the cows come home. They're not journalists anymore. They're activists.
But even if it was, we'd have no way of knowing because the arena's so polluted now. You know, it could be a very good article. It could be very unbiased, but there's no way we'd be able to pick it out of the rest of the shit that's out there.
Have you heard of a YouTuber called Tim Pool?
No.
I think I've seen the name.
He's an independent journalist, and he's just started a new YouTube channel called Subverse News, and it is just factual, on the ground reporting back to what journalism used to be. And I think that people like him need to be the future of journalism, because he has a second YouTube channel where he does his opinion pieces, but he specifically states these are opinion pieces.
Yeah.
Whereas when he does his news, it is news.
Yeah.
But all of our current crop of mainstream journalists hide their opinion pieces as news.
Yeah.
This is just not a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, they'll use slightly different words like analysis, so that's just them speculating, but they are presenting it as if it is a fact, and that's the best analysis they can get.
When they want to smear someone these days, they'll call them alt-right. It is objectively 99% of the people media call alt-right are not alt-right, because alt-right has a very specific definition. They want a white ethno-state. And most of these people do not want a white ethno-state. I don't want a white ethno-state.
Yeah.
But it's just they take these words, these labels, and they just put them on people.
Yeah.
I can see that in some ways, but to a point, I think it is necessary to call people out on bullshit, even if you're giving it the wrong label.
Oh, I 100% think it's absolutely necessary to call people out on bullshit, but I don't think you want to be telling people what their politics are. Do I get to decide what your politics are? Do I get to tell you what you are?
No, but I feel like some people would decide that they can, and often it's the opposite side.
Yeah, and this is what's happening, and as I say, people are radicalising more and more on social media because they just fall into their little bubbles and then they other everybody else. And this is how we get where we are now with people being smeared, because all they can take is their own opinion. I mean, and then anything else to them is so alien that it must be attacked.
If anything, that finger pointing from the other side tends to drive people further in whatever direction they're already going. You know,
I mean, if you continuously call someone that's not alt-right, how long until they go, well, fuck it, they're calling me alt-right anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have heard that logic from certain people, which is worrying.
Yeah, there's only so much someone can take.
Might as well be hung for a lamb as a... What is it? What's the saying? A what?
A sheep.
Might as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb. That's it.
Yeah.
But I feel like at a certain point, just people get frustrated with constantly having to deal with new bullshit. Having to go, well, obviously that's bullshit. But, so they have to just come up with a blanket label that's maybe not accurate for everyone that they're talking about. And it's not accurate for the majority of people they're talking about. It's just a general thing that they can say to rid them of bullshit, even though it's not effective.
Well, but all it does is cheapen the meaning of the words.
Yeah.
Until you believe.
So,
but like I say, words like racist, it's used so often now on people that are objectively not racist, because they'll do something like criticize Islam. Right? Islam is an ideology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I criticize every damn religion there is, because they're all.
Well, that's something we all agree on.
but the thing is, if you criticize that one religion, you're all of a sudden online you're a racist. No, you're not.
Yeah, no,
I feel like it's criticizing one more than the other, because I've seen Richard Dawkins. I mean, it's odd because usually he's quite critical of Christians.
But the reason I believe that people are critical of Islam more than they are of other Abrahamic religions is Islam hasn't had a reform yet, whereas like Christianity has had a reform, and it's become a lot less violent and a lot less violent in its rhetoric, whereas Islam never had that.
They're still on the Crusades stage.
I mean, I'm not one to criticize anybody for believing what they want to believe. They want to believe it. They want to believe it. That's up to them.
As long as it doesn't fuck everything else up.
Exactly.
Saudi Arabia and the UAE, both of which I think we sell weapons to, have the death penalty for blasphemy or apostasy.
Don't they also have the death penalty for being gay?
Yeah. So I can get criticizing Islam. It's just when it goes to the point of you're criticizing all Muslims and saying, oh, well, they all believe that it should be violent, which you're not doing, and I don't think most people are trying to do.
I would never suppose to know what somebody believes
if
they tell me what they believe.
But I think it's with generalizations that a lot of people get criticized for being racist or Islamophobic in that way.
Islamophobia doesn't exist. It's not a thing. It's a made-up word.
The police force would disagree, I think, though.
Yeah, but the man who invented the word came. I forget his name, but the man who coined the phrase said he was wrong to do so, because
if anything, it's terroristophobia.
Well, no, because Islam isn't automatically terrorism.
Exactly. So why call it Islamophobia? People aren't scared of Islam, they're scared of terrorism.
Yeah, but it's using that generalization of, well, because then you could just say...
But this could go back to uncomfortable conversations, right? Uncomfortable conversations that need to be had. There, like I say, there is a terrorist attack going on every single day on this planet. And worldwide, it is overwhelmingly Islamic terror right now. That's doing this, and it is Muslims who are overwhelmingly the victims of this terror, and yet we're not having that discussion. We're not having that conversation. We're not even acknowledging it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to the global terrorism database just to fact check that. Oh, this is information on 180,000 terrorist attacks
from 1970 through 2017. Bit out of date.
I was worrying.
Let's look in. I'm just going to quickly check within the last month.
I'm going to have to bow out soon because I've got a long drive tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll wrap this up in a minute anyway.
Yeah.
But like I say, there are uncomfortable conversations here that people are not having, and to say that to say that if you acknowledge this is somehow Islamophobia, because it is a fact that, at least in recent times, it is overwhelmingly an Islamic terror attack. I think.
Well, that's exactly what Jeremy Corbyn's been accused of, isn't it? The anti-Semitic thing. It's like, just because he's criticising Israel.
I think he's criticising Israel, but some more extreme members of the party that are claiming to be his followers and are claiming to share his ideas.
They do just hate Jews.
Yeah, but they don't share his ideas. So they're using the fact that he doesn't like the actions of the Israeli government to sort of ban round this thing, and then he's getting the shit for it.
I think he's getting a lot of shit for not actually cracking down on that, though, and making it clear.
I mean, I think he's trying to more than
I've heard him
the Tories do, but...
Yeah.
In March 2019, I'm just going through
the article I've got here says at least US terror attacks are increasingly motivated by right-wing views.
Yeah, of course they are, because there's no Islam really in the US. It's such a tiny minority.
Yeah.
But look, here we go. The 1st of March. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Islamic terror attacks.
Where, though?
Yeah, we don't hear about them, most of them, do we?
So we got suicide bombings, hostage taking, shooting. Helmand province, Afghanistan, was the Taliban. Shooting in Kazar district, Afghanistan, was the Taliban.
Yeah.
Suicide bombing in Idlib, Syria, was Islamic State. In Mali was Al Qaeda. This was all on one day this month.
Yeah.
You know,
gets a lot less coverage though over here.
So on that one day, 23 dead there, 15 plus dead there, 8 plus dead there, 9 dead there, 5 dead there, all in one day, and it gets no coverage.
Yeah.
And like I say, the victims of these are overwhelmingly Muslims.
Yeah, because it's in a war zone, pretty much. I don't think Mali's a war zone, but
it's just, I'm going through the list of perpetrators here, and so far, just this month, Democratic Forces of the Liberation of Rwanda are the only ones so far that are not an Islamic terror attack. Like, obviously, apart from New Zealand, you've got a bombing here in Syria and a bombing in Pakistan, but it's unknown. But Palestinian nationalists, Houthi, I don't know if the Houthis are Islamic, but the point driving home is to point this out these days is to be called Islamophobic.
Right. Yeah, Islamic.
That was something to do with Yemen, was it?
Yeah, it's an insurgency in Yemen.
Yeah. The Houthis. Anyway, and that's Saudi Arabia's got some involvement in that as well, haven't they?
But, yeah, of course they do.
I feel like in all of this, we focus on the actual attacks rather than.
I mean, there was an Islamist attack, stabbing attack, which thankfully killed nobody in Spain on the 6th of this month. Did you hear about that?
No.
In Barcelona, knifeman tried to stab a group of police officers in Port Olympic tourist zone. The attacker shouted "Allahu Akbar" as he was neutralised and being detained.
I live in fear of hearing somebody shout that on a train or something. It's like, what would go through your mind if you hear somebody shout that in a public place?
Well, but the thing is, it just means God is great. So
I know,
if they're not,
but it's just
committing a terrorist.
It's just the way we've been conditioned by the media.
Yeah, but once again, is it how we're being conditioned by the media, or is it the fact that, as uncomfortable as it is to say, just reading this list of just this month, these Islamists, and I'm not going to call them Muslims, are overwhelmingly who are doing these attacks.
Yeah.
You know,
what was that? I was trying to remember that phrase.
Christchurch, New Zealand, on the same day as the Christchurch shooting, which is now 50 confirmed dead, I believe.
Yeah.
On the same day, there was a suicide bombing in Syria, where it was Islamic State, and a shooting in Syria, which was Islamic State, and a bombing in Kabul in Afghanistan that was suspected.
Under normal conditions, good people do good things and bad people do bad things. It takes religion to make good people do bad things.
Yeah, it's true. It's true because they feel justified in their actions.
Yeah. Well, I did actually see this week that Theresa May thinks is convinced she's doing the right thing by pushing forward with their deal because she's got God on her side.
That thing's not a deal.
No. She does keep recycling it, though.
Please accept my surrender.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Anyway, I think we should wind up.
Yeah,
I think so too, and I think we've had a great conversation. Really,
it's been a very interesting debate.
Yeah, because I felt like we disagreed a lot there, but I'm glad that we managed to keep it.
Well, you have said that you like to try to see the opposing sides of, opposing sides of different views on things.
Yeah,
to try to understand different. And I think I will come away from this with a deeper understanding of different viewpoints on a lot of what we've discussed, which is exactly what you were talking about. It's the discourse. It's the things that people need to be talking about, and they're being encouraged all the time to divide and.
Because whilst I would
fire at each other from the board,
personally disagree with the perspective that you're putting forward here,
right.
I can see what motivates you to think that, and just how the world isn't good anyway, and how you could extract that.
Yeah,
I can see how you reach your conclusions.
Is that not an essential ingredient of having a world where people can coexist of different ideas and beliefs? Is that you can hold differing opinions and you can talk to each other about it and you can understand each other's points of view and accept each other and each other's differences.
I mean, I just come from the point of view that, every man is equal, every woman is equal, everyone is equal, and you should be able to believe what you want to believe, do what you want to do, whatever, as long as you don't harm anybody else in the process.
Yeah, that's something we all agree on, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want to be gay, you want to be gay, you want to be straight, you want to be trans, you want to do any of that shit, right? You do whatever you want to do. I don't care. This shit is so inconsequential. This shit is always debated about. It's so inconsequential. People should just live their lives as they want, and as long as they're not encroaching on my freedom or taking away my rights.
It matters a lot to them, but it really has no bearing on anyone that's outside of their personal circle.
But does it? Because I know enough trans people who hate the trans lobby, for example.
I think we're opening up another hole.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll be having you on the show again. So I'm sure we'll have opportunity to if you're willing to join us again.
I'm willing to yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a great conversation,
and I'm sure that subject will come up.
We normally probably won't try and keep it to this sort of length because it's getting on to 3 hours now, I think.
Well, it's maybe something we can, because obviously this has been a bit of an experiment, this episode, in terms of changing the format up a little bit. I felt it was a bit short before and we weren't going into enough depth with stuff. Maybe we should have a think about
there's a sort of balance there, I think,
whether or not we concentrate on 2 or 3 main news items and do a proper in-depth discussion about them, because we have gone off on all sorts of tangents, which is really the best way to kind of cover a lot of ground. So
yeah,
we'll let it develop, and
but we'll try and get different guests with different opinions and try and sort of make it representative of people.
Oh yeah, and this is exactly what I'd want to see from anybody. Is I think you should be talking to everyone. I think the person you disagree with most is the person you want to sit down and hash it out with.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you very much for your time.
Yep. Okay.
Well,
so
thanks for having
Now I'm going to do the outro because I really need to sleep for tomorrow because
you're taking part in a contest tomorrow, aren't you?
Yeah. And I have to be able to at least
That's my mother just leaving.
Without dying. And I'm quite ill right now anyway, so... outro.
Say goodbye.
I have been Firebolt.
I've been the Orbiter. No, you've been Theo, I've been Paul.
No, I've been Firebolt.
That's breaking bollocks.
No, this is our channel, so I have been Firebolt.
Alright, I've been the Orbiter. Who have you been?
Ben.
Been awesome.
Alright.
But no, yeah, I've been Ben.
Is that the objective truth, though?
I'm leaving now.
Okay. Let's say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for your time.
That's alright.
See ya.
Yeah. No, that was good.
Oh, cut him off. Oh, Jesus, that went on.
Fuck, I'm dying.
This podcast is part of the After Dark Podcast Network.